Chapter 23, Best Shot. Numerous people who were paying attention to this fight had a feeling of countless eyeglasses breaking from falling down on the ground, and now they could see the truth very clearly. Ma Ying was powerful enough to be placed in the top 5 figures of the inner sect disciples. Since the competition had started, he had constantly used his extremely tyrannical strength to rush rampaging through his fights all the way to the present. However, no one would have expected that Yi Shiwen had actually hidden his true strength, and it was unexpectedly sufficient enough to be compared favorably with inner sect's top 5 disciples. Yi Shiwen finally shot his rushing thunder hand fiercely, causing a thunderstorm-like rumbling sound which echoed above the venue. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yi Shiwen directly shot a total 6 echoes. This attack was extremely fast, enough to leave afterimages. Haha, you dare to use your hands against my sledgehammer, you really are seeking death, look how I smash your hands into smithereens. Ma Ying laughed hideously. He used his 2 hammers like mountains and directly pressed down with overwhelming power to block all the space around Yi Shiwen. Boom! With a loud sound of explosion, Yi Shiwen's hands directly slammed into the pair of sledgehammers, causing a huge shock wave. Suddenly all of the people watching this battle were stunned, as they had imagined that both his hands would break apart and disappear completely from the scene. However, on the contrary, his pair of hands, like a formidable force, had directly destroyed the sledgehammers. Yi Shiwen's one hit had blown those sledgehammers into smithereens. Ironback silver monkeys possessed stronger body than ordinary, as if reinforced with a steel frame. It was difficult for the swords and spears to pierce their bodies, all thanks to that special liquor that they had regularly consumed. And this month he had also consumed a huge amount of the same liquor which he had stolen from their cave, and that resulted in reinforcing his mortal body to a great extent. His power had already reached the strength of 19 tigers, while Ma Ying had only the strength of 9 tigers. Ma Ying wanted to overwhelm him using his power, but he didn't know that his strength was 10 levels short of Yi Shiwen, whose strength was far beyond his own. Pass like thunder and move like the wind. Yi Shiwen, after destroying the pair of sledgehammers, slammed his palm right into Ma Ying's robust body. Bang! Ma Ying simply had no time to resist, and with a bang, he flew out into the sky. Stop! Suddenly a loud burst of sound rang in the sky. Yi Shiwen paid no attention to it, and suddenly the air exploded beneath his feet. Using the celestial step, he instantly pursued behind his flying body with both his hands like a pair of shadows that filled the entire sky with a barrage of attacks and severely slapped Ma Ying's still flying body multiple times. Lightning and thunder. Ghostly thunder axe. Leveling storm 4 strokes. Boom! Ma Ying's tall figure fell fiercely on the ground, all the bones in his body had been broken and his body looked in a very bad state. The most important thing was the sea of qi surrounding his body that was directly shattered in the barrage of attacks. This sea of qi was the essence of a warrior's cultivation, and was also the true storage place for the spiritual power. He had exposed this sea of qi, although he didn't die, but his cultivation had completely been destroyed, and in the future, it would be impossible for him to continue practicing. Yi Shiwen knew that this villain would retaliate endlessly until he got his revenge, but in presence of such a large crowd of people, it was impossible to kill him. So once he exposed his sea of qi, Yi Shiwen used this opportunity to completely cut off any future troubles. Yi Shiwen, how dare you! You did not hear me when I told you to stop. At this time a figure dropping from the sky on the site. He actually saw Yi Yuan School's elder clad in black clothes and was glaring angrily at him. Yi Shiwen knew that this black-clad elder was called Wang Jian. He was the lord of Yi Yuan School's penalty palace and hence was in charge of punishing disciples, which was reason why ordinary disciples were very afraid of him. And most importantly, Wang Jian and Yi Kongming had never been on good terms, and this had led to a huge accumulation of resentment. Under the watchful eyes of the public, you have injured a disciple of the same school. If only our Yi Yuan School's ancestor had not set that law which allows bringing in people like you to grow up in the school. It's definitely a disaster for our Yi Yuan School. Wang Jian said while buckling up the big hat on his head. Injuring the disciple of the same school, with a big hat like that, you can't even see. Are all the people here blind? It was Ma Ying who attacked me first and wanted to kill me as well. I was just defending myself, Yi Shiwen said bluntly. Wang Jian and Yi Kongming had been hostile towards each other for a long time, not to mention now that he had got a chance, he was simply looking for trouble. You really have a sharp-mouthed kid. Wang Jian stared coldly at Yi Shiwen and said, you say it was for self-defense but you have unexpectedly damaged his cultivation. Moreover, Ma Ying is considered a genius in our Yi Yuan school and by damaging his cultivation, you have committed a serious crime. Then doesn't that mean one can't fight back in self-defense when he is being bullied? Just what kind of law is this? Yi Shiwen retorted then said, besides if he is really a genius then why couldn't he stop even one of my moves? He is nothing but a loser, and even if the school uses more resources in his development, it will be nothing but a waste of resources. I was only defending myself and let the people do the justice because you can't hide anything from them. Yi Shiwen said. Well, I am the Lord of the Penalty Palace and I have full authority over giving punishments. You have injured a disciple from the same school and the evidence is solid, so don't even think about denying your crime. Wang Jian suddenly used a tyrannical power of Xiantian level which caused his spiritual qi to explode and spread out like a big hand trying to grab Yi Shiwen. Then the qi turned into a claw trying to grab him by his shoulders. If he had been seized firmly by that claw then his shoulder would have dislocated then and there. Quite vicious. Yi Shiwen suddenly took a step and trotted very fast using his celestial step to retreat, but Wang Jian also caught up with him and tried to grab him with his claw. However, it almost missed him, resulting into a terrible air explosion. Ah! Yi Shiwen gave a loud shout. He was forced into a dead end and Wang Jian used his tyrannical qi to firmly lock him down. Clang! Yi Shiwen suddenly withdrew a long blade from his back causing a loud metal clanging sound and instantly used the first move of Cold Moon Beheader technique called New Moon Beheader. 9 blade shadows suddenly appeared in the sky and fiercely rushed towards Wang Jian. These shadows were extremely fast and even contained some power from the rushing thunder hand. 9 blade shadows contained a very monstrous power and spread all over the sky, unexpectedly blocking all the space around Wang Jian with unimaginable power. No one had expected that his blade attack would actually be so powerful. This was his real strength. Since all this time he had been defeating his opponents with one move, he did not need to use his real strength, but when he was cornered, he had to resort to his most powerful attack. Swift and fierce knife-like wind was blowing in the venue causing a stinging sensation which was quite painful for the crowd. How is this possible? Wang Jian's eyes flashed with horror as he had not expected Yi Shiwen to actually use this kind of powerful blade attack in such a desperate situation. Wang Jian suddenly took several steps and his figure turned into a lightning flash and withdrew from the scope of this blade shadow attack which had instantaneously covered a large area. He barely escaped from this blow. As he was going to attack again, suddenly a loud shout exploded in the sky, "Old fool, stop hurting my son." A big hand covered all of the sky and descended towards Wang Jian, forming a few meters large palm made of qi. Wang Jian's hands also stretched out to go up to welcome the incoming attack. Boom! A terrible explosion spread in the range of tens of meters, causing even the air to explode. Chapter 24 enters into the top 3. Wang Jian was pushed back several steps and each step made a few inches deep footprint in the ground. This was all just to stop the enormous force present in Yi Kongming's previous attack. His face looked a little flushed and it seemed like this time he had suffered a small defeat. A person's shadow fell into the crowd having an extraordinary aura around it. It was Yi Kongming. All of the disciples present there were watching intently because this was going to be a fight between 2 prominent school elders who were also Xiantian level masters, and this fight was definitely not something one could witness any time. Yi Kongming, are you going to cover for your son? Wang Jian shouted. Wang Jian, you think I don't know? Your plan is to use your official power for revenge. My son was only defending himself, but you dare to distort the facts and accuse my son falsely. Yi Kongming said in a cold voice. I am the Lord of Penalty Palace, and for committing such an act, your son should be punished in accordance with the law. He should be abolished from practicing martial arts and should also be expelled from the school. Wang Jian said in a stern voice. Well, since when did Yi Yuan School start punishing for self-defense? My son only did this in self-defense, and that too under the watchful eyes of so many people who can testify for my son's innocence, so don't you dare teach me what's right or wrong. Don't make me report this to the ancestor, because then you will definitely lose your position as the Lord of Penalty Palace. Yi Kongming said without the slightest amount of doubt in his voice. Various thoughts started flowing into Wang Jian's mind. Including the people present there, he himself knew very well whether Yi Shiwen was innocent or guilty. In fact, it was all because of the feud between him and Yi Kongming, and he wanted to vent his hatred on his son's body. He had planned to capture and hurt Yi Shiwen using a surprise attack, but unexpectedly Yi Shiwen was actually able to dodge it quite easily. If the ancestor got to know about this incident, he would naturally be very fond of such a young talent, although Yi Shiwen had used his powers brutally, but it was after all in self-defense. Well, today you are defending your son, but sooner or later you will regret it. Wang Jian soon turned to leave without even looking once towards Ma Ying, as if he didn't care whether he lived or died. That Yi Shiwen is so fierce. I would never have imagined that there was such a monster hiding among the disciples, and no one knew about his existence until now. Not even a Xiantian master's fierce attacks could hurt him at all. Gee, that blade is simply invincible. I am afraid even the masters of the 7th stage can't escape its range. What sort of evildoer is he? Even his rushing thunder hand technique is extremely profound, and that blade is absolutely terrible. After Tang Nian admitted his defeat, Yi Shiwen's next opponent, who had also reached the peak of 6th stage, was unwilling to give up, but was slapped out of the arena in one move. Including the back-to-back victories in these 2 rounds, Yi Shiwen had easily broken into the top 6 ranks. In addition to him, 4 of the original inner sect's top 5 masters had impressively also entered the top 6 ranks. In addition to these 5 people, 1 person was also nominated into the top 6 ranks. He was an intimidating man of strong build, and his cultivation was already at the peak of 6th stage. Yi Shiwen had finally met a true master as his next opponent, who was ranked 3rd in the top 5 masters, named Zhang Xiang. After defeating him, he could enter the top 3. Please advise me. Yi Shiwen said. Brother Yi is quite strong, even that Ma Ying was easily defeated by you. Zhang Xiang said. But Ma Ying was the weakest of us 5 disciples, so it won't be easy for you to beat me. Yi Shiwen also knew that Zhang Xiang had been a part of the top 5 inner sect disciples for a long time. Zhang Xiang released all his power without any restraint, and surprisingly he was at the middle of 7th stage. No wonder he said that Ma Ying was the weakest among them. Many of the disciples were amazed, because an inner sect disciple had actually reached the 7th stage, and even after reaching the 7th stage, why had he not become a core disciple? Stonefall Fist. Zhang Xiang shouted loudly, his eyes suddenly gave a sharp look and his figure exploded forward with a pair of fists above wrapped in a layer of pale yellow and intimidating qi. He had obtained this boxing technique called truncated fist during an adventure years ago. This boxing technique had been labeled as one of the most powerful techniques in the school. Zhang Xiang in an instant appeared in front of Yi Shiwen, and his fists like 2 hills smashed down on him. Rushing thunder hand. Yi Shiwen shouted softly as his hands wrapped in a layer of thunder like qi which moved up to welcome the incoming attack. Yi Shiwen hands struck out 6 echoes. Bang! 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 Both sides exchanged blows while their shadows interlocked. Yi Shiwen had reached the peak of his strength, but Zhang Xiang was actually in a situation as if his strength was breaking 10,000 laws. Finally their fists pounded fiercely. Boom! Yi Shiwen's rushing thunder hand once again made a loud explosion-like sound, and the power suddenly increased dramatically. His palms directly collided with Zhang Xiang's double fist, which cracked instantly upon impact, and then his palm directly printed on his chest. Bang! Zhang Xiang was slapped by a palm and he flew directly out of the arena while upside down. This fight's victor is Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen smoothly entered into the top 3. Chapter 25, 3 moves to knock you down. That Yi Shiwen is just too strong, to think he was actually able to enter into the top 3 ranks. I heard he is the youngest son of elder Yi Kongming, no wonder he is so strong, not even one of the Yi siblings is weak. The news of Yi Shiwen advancing into the top 3 had suddenly shocked so many people that the news of other disciples entering into the top 10 had paled in comparison. To the extent that almost no one even knew their names. Of course, it was not like no one knew about the importance of this news, for example Wang Lai. He surrounded Yi Shiwen excitedly and said, "Ha ha ha, aw man, you are fucking awesome. If I come across something unexpected in the future, and if someone dares to bully me, then you help me beat him." Yi Shiwen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What was he, Wang Lai's bodyguard? Or goon? However, Yi Shiwen felt warm in his heart because no matter what he said, Wang Lai considered himself as his brother. Walking sideways, he is nothing but an upstart who pretends as if he is really a newbie character when he does not even know the immensity of the universe. Suddenly a sarcastic voice spread from one side. Everyone looked in the direction from where the voice had originated and saw a young man about 20 years old, clad in a Chinese robe. He looked handsome, but there was a look of disdain on his face. Someone recognized this young man as Xiao Yanxue. He was one of the 5 great disciples, ranking 2nd, and hence was also one of the top 3 inner sect disciples. "What did you say?" Yi Shiwen said immediately in a cold voice. "I said you are just like a frog at the bottom of a well who does not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Where do you think Yi Yuan School stands in this big universe, and you just know how to associate with a trash?" Zhao Yanxue said, and it was clear that he was calling Wang Lai a trash. When Yi Shiwen was getting a lot of public attention, Zhao Yanxue was simply dying of jealousy. This time he had wanted to enjoy all the attention of the people, but rather it was stolen by some unknown guy named Yi Shiwen. Who was this guy? Why was everyone paying attention to him, when he himself had also entered into the top 3 and had imagined to be the focus of everyone's attention, but instead of what he had imagined, everyone was paying attention to the sudden emergence of Yi Shiwen. "I am a genius, not him." Zhao Yanxue was screaming loudly in his heart. "Zhao Yanxue, if you are a man then come up on the stage and play with me," Yi Shiwen said as he turned and jumped into the arena. All the eyes were fixated on Zhao Yanxue, who was ranked 2nd in the top 3 disciples. This was the right time to find out exactly who was the stronger one between the two of them. Although Zhao Yanxue knew that Yi Shiwen was definitely not someone to be trifled with, but the words had already been said and it was impossible to take them back. Moreover, he had also felt that Yi Shiwen was just like a dark horse, so how could he possibly resist against an experienced veteran like himself? "Humph, I'll teach you a lesson, so that you learn about the immensity of heaven and earth." Zhao Shui sneered and also jumped in the arena. "Dongfang Bai is here." Suddenly there was a commotion and a white figure emerged from the crowd, holding a double-edged sword in one hand and was clad in white clothes, filled with heroic aura. This double-edged sword although looked ordinary from its sheath and scabbard, but when unsheathed, it looked very sharp. Everyone present there knew that he was the first of the 5 great disciples named Dongfang Bai. There were rumors of him practicing fencing from his childhood, and with a sword in one hand while ranking first among the inner sect disciples, he had challenged a core disciple 3 years ago. Although he had not won, but he had not lost either, which showed his extraordinary strength. Being the first of the 5 great disciples was certainly not for show. Dongfang Bai just calmly looked at the two and stayed quiet. The top 3 disciples had gathered here and one could easily guess that this was going to be a fierce competition between the 2 evenly matched opponents. Soon the group of elders made the decision to advance the competition for the title of a champion. "Now no one's going to save you," Zhao Yanxue said and sneered repeatedly. 3 moves, if I can't knock you down in 3 moves then I will turn around and walk away. Yi Shiwen said while showing 3 fingers. Zhao Yanshue's complexion turned pale immediately after being humiliated out in the open by Yi Shiwen. Right, exactly, knock him down, what's so great about these 5 great disciples anyway? Wang Lai shouted from below. You are courting death. Zhao Shui said, today I'll break all the bones in your body, and allow you to learn about the immensity of heaven and earth. Zhao Yanxue was burning with anger, his whole body was seething with anger and the qi had covered all over and around his body causing a noise from the friction from the fine threads of air inside the ring. It seemed like the news of him reaching the late 7th stage was definitely not bogus. As soon as he used his fists to punch, immediately it felt as if the temperature had dropped by several degrees in the entire arena. This was his famous, trembling ice fist technique, which when used could directly freeze a person. Endless cold wind instantly wrapped around Yi Shiwen as if trying to freeze him along with his life. But after seeing this, Yi Shiwen shouted loudly, and with just a step his stature exploded out of the snow and rushed towards Zhao Yanxue. Then he used his move, pass like thunder and move like the wind, against trembling ice fist, and easily split it open and scattered its power thoroughly. The immensity of heaven and earth, do you still want to teach me about it? Yi Shiwen sneered while his palm slapped. Bang! An average and not so powerful palm slapped directly on his face. Poof! Zhao Yanxue spurted out a lot of blood, and almost all of his teeth were extracted out by Yi Shiwen. You? Zhao Yanxue looked unbelievably at him, but Yi Shiwen didn't plan to stop whatsoever, he immediately used his foot and kicked fiercely. Bang! Zhao Yanxue flew out in the air from the kick, and in the moment of his fall, Yi Shiwen instantly used his palm covered with thunder-shaped qi and slapped him with a destructive force, having a fearful wave of unmatched power which bombarded fiercely into his body. Boom! Zhao Yanxue fiercely fell out of the arena, all of the ribs in his chest were broken then he collapsed and fell unconscious. Many of the disciples who were watching this felt a chill down their spines and swallowed their saliva, because yet another of the 5 great disciples was seriously wounded, and Yi Shiwen had already defeated 3 out of 5. Except the head of the 5 great disciples Dongfang Bai and 1 other female disciple Xian, none of the other 3 were his match. Now that Zhao Yanxue was seriously injured and unconscious, the only ones left to snatch the title of champion were Yi Shiwen and Dongfang Bai. This Yi Shiwen is unexpectedly so powerful that even Zhao Yanxue, a master of the late 7th stage, was so easily defeated by him. It's a pity that he is so ruthless and acts rashly, so we can't know for sure whether he will be a blessing or a curse once he grows up in the future. Such a powerful disciple to actually come from our Yi Yuan school, of course it's a blessing for the school. The more talented our disciples are, the more formidable our school will be. There was a discussion going on about Yi Shiwen among the elders sitting in the elders' seating area. I won't take advantage of you, so I'll wait for you to take good rest. Dongfang Bai said indifferently, as Yi Shiwen had demonstrated his strength in front of everyone and was eager for action, so he kind of wanted to urge him to fight on impulse. No, it will be nothing but a waste of time. Yi Shiwen said, even though Zhao Yanxue had already reached the 7th stage but he still couldn't be a match for him and was easily defeated. He simply didn't need to use too much strength to beat him, and within few breaths his strength had already been restored to its peak condition. Chapter 26, The Winning, well, quite straightforward. Dongfang Bai nodded then flew up and skimmed over the ring just like a bird skimming over its prey. All the eyes were fixed on the 2 individuals, as this was going to be the toughest battle in this year's school inner waiting. This event was going to be the main center of attraction for everyone because the one who would win this battle would also win the championship and become the champion among the inner sect disciples. Although after this battle, the next competition was going to be among the outer sect disciples, however their overall strength was quite low compared to inner sect disciples. Every year, very few people would come to watch their fights, even those elders who had been watching the competition from elders' seating area earlier would also leave including the lords of various palaces, leaving only a few elders as in charge of the competition. Then L will accept your request. Dongfang Bai's sword danced like a flower. Then he pointed his sword at Yi Shiwen and said, "Take out your blade." Dongfang Bai was well known for his swordsmanship among the disciples, and his cultivation itself was quite amazing. He had already reached the peak of the 7th stage and he could break through to the 8th stage anytime. This time's 5 great disciples could be considered as the strongest generation to emerge from inner sect disciples. Yi Yuan school allowed the masters of the 5th stage to qualify as the core disciples. Those who had acquired the 7th stage were not considered weak among the core disciples, those who were at the 8th stage were considered strong, and finally those who had already attained the 9th stage were considered extremely strong among the core disciples. Yi Shiwen had finally pulled out a long blade surrounded by onlookers and disciples who were staring at him with their big wide eyes, as this was the second time Yi Shiwen had pulled out his blade in front of them. The first time, it was against the Lord of the Penalty Palace, a Xiantian-level master Wang Jian. Now perhaps they could finally take a glimpse at his true strength, because earlier all of his opponents had been defeated by his palm technique. "Watch out!" Dongfang Bai shouted gently, in his hand holding a sharp sword which danced and produced a sharp light which instantly struck towards Yi Shiwen. The speed of this strike was so fast that the sky instantly filled with light produced from the sword. However, the true killer attack was hidden somewhere inside that sword light which had spread all over the sky. Yi Shiwen's blade chopped out the new moon beheader. His blade had chopped down straight towards the incoming attack, as he had already seen through Dongfang Bai's killer move, so he had used his own killer move to counter it. Boom! Yi Shiwen's blade struck at Dongfang Bai's sword with great strength, producing a sound of air explosion in the arena. Both of their attacks were extremely fast. Dongfang Bai's swordplay method itself emphasized on quick and skillful attacks, and Yi Shiwen's cold moon beheader was also a top-class speed technique, otherwise how could he strike 9 blade shadows at once? In addition to that, he had also integrated a part of the rushing thunder hand skill into the blade, bringing his blade attack to a near perfection. Both of their weapons collided as the crowd beneath was carefully tracking all their actions. Zhang Xiang, one of the 5 great disciples, was also watching this fight with an ugly expression on his face. Earlier he had also fought against Yi Shiwen and had lost tragically to his palm technique. He had originally thought that Yi Shiwen's palm technique was his most powerful technique, but he would never have imagined that this palm technique was nothing compared to his astonishing blade technique. This was his true strength. Dongfang Bai was already at the peak of 7th stage, and his strength was enormous, almost about to break through the strength of 20 tigers. Although he had practiced in the school of speed, even the masters of the 9th stage would easily be cut down by his sword, which was quite shocking. Although Yi Shiwen had only acquired the peak of 6th stage, his strength was not one bit inferior to him. Yi Shiwen's long blade was striking without stagnation, his blade strikes were as fast as the lightning and ice-cold like the moon. Basically he was not giving Dongfang Bai any opportunity to take rest. This move, New Moon Beheader, he had already practiced to the state of perfection, where his moves resembled the nature itself, without the slightest flaws. Dongfang Bai was finding it difficult to anticipate Yi Shiwen's moves, and it was quite evident that Yi Shiwen's skill with the blade was quite high. Although Dongfang Bai's cultivation was higher, but his understanding of the swordplay was far lesser compared to Yi Shiwen. He was just a teenager, how could his understanding of the swordplay be this good? Dongfang Bai would never know the secret about Yi Shiwen's mysterious space. However, right now he did not have unnecessary time to think about the reason, because Yi Shiwen's long blade had already struck. Dongfang Bai had no other choice but to use his sword and stab, which split open Yi Shiwen's incoming blade attack. However, the authority to take initiative in the battle had already been transferred from his hands to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had easily gained the upper hand, the long blade flashed like lightning in his hand and 3 blade shadows suddenly appeared in the sky, and chopped down towards Dongfang Bai. Dongfang Bai could only resist passively, and in his heart he was being choked to death. Even if it was master at the peak of 6th stage using 3 swords simultaneously to attack him, it would not pose any threat to him. Even if it was a master at the peak of 7th stage, Dongfang Bai could easily defeat him, but Yi Shiwen was simply an abnormality. His speed was no less than his own speed, and while using the celestial step skill, his speed was even faster. Even his strength was somewhat larger than his own strength. Yi Shiwen was basically a monster, as he had consumed monkey wine which had increased his strength drastically, was definitely not lower than Dongfang Bai's strength. Even his Jin Qi had become thick and profound and transformed into a mysterious group of light and was definitely powerful compared to Dongfang Bai's Jin Qi. None of the aspects of Yi Shiwen were inferior to Dongfang Bai, in fact some of his aspects were even better. Dongfang Bai was clearly losing to his dominating fighting style. Everyone was shocked. They all knew that Yi Shiwen was very powerful, but they had absolutely not expected that his real strength would actually be so incredible. Who was Dongfang Bai? He was the first of the 5 great disciples and no one among the inner sect disciples was stronger than him. Long time ago, he had fought against a core disciple and still couldn't be defeated, however now he was clearly losing to Yi Shiwen, which was simply a miracle to them. The elders were somewhat surprised while looking at the two exchanging blows in the arena. Their strength levels were simply not enough to surprise the Xiantian level elders, but Yi Shiwen was simply too amazing. Everyone was quite favorable towards the genius of the inner sect disciples, and with his talent, he could easily become a core disciple. Also it would be easy for him to rise inside the core sect by taking over the positions left by senior core disciples. One could imagine that there were great expectations of him. However, no one had expected that he might actually lose to Yi Shiwen's dominating fighting style, although he had not yet lost to Yi Shiwen, but it was quite clear from the battle itself that Yi Shiwen's monstrous Shin Qi would definitely defeat him sooner or later. This dark horse was actually too dark. Meanwhile, Yi Kongming was looking at his son's outstanding performance. He looked happy and was grinning from ear to ear, and was also not being critical about Yi Shiwen's performance. Dongfang Bai certainly knew that in this fight, he would surely be defeated sooner or later. His only choice left was to wait for Yi Shiwen's Jin Qi to get used up. But it was evident from Yi Shiwen's ruddy complexion that he still had a lot of fight left in him. Dongfang Bai had no other choice but to risk it all in one final attack. Dongfang Bai howled loudly, his sword danced producing a silver sword light which obscured the sky like a mighty galaxy. This move was powerful enough to decide the outcome of this battle. Yi Shiwen also gave a loud shout, his blade chopped out and suddenly 9 blade shadows appeared in the sky, although faint but unexpectedly a new moon was split open while fully demonstrating the profoundness of this attack. Boom! A terrible blast wave of qi swept off across the ring and the huge ring directly collapsed down. The smoke and dust finally dispersed and everyone could see that Dongfang Bai's clothes had been damaged. He looked somewhat distressed, and Yi Shiwen's long blade was placed horizontally on his shoulder. The outcome of this battle was clear. Champion Yi Shiwen. Chapter 27, Hotian's 7th stage school inner weighing, which took place only once in every 3 years, had finally come to an end, and Yi Shiwen, the unexpected dark horse of this competition, had unexpectedly won the championship and had also become the center of attraction. Nobody had imagined that an unknown guy like Yi Shiwen would actually win this competition, and from now onwards this name would firmly settle itself into their minds. After the competition was over, the Yi family had gathered at home to have dinner together. Yi Feng had been busy with his closed-door training so he didn't attend, but Yi Ruxue was present at the dinner. The whole family was beaming with happiness because Yi Shiwen had unexpectedly won the championship, although years ago both Yi Feng and Yi Ruxue had also become champions and had been promoted to the rank of core disciples, but since these two were already considered geniuses so it was not surprising. However, Yi Shiwen's performance had always been very mediocre, but this time his power erupted suddenly and he also won the championship. This had thoroughly surprised his family. Wenner, before you were just at the Hotian 4th stage, weren't you? But in just 1 month, you actually reached the peak of 6th stage, and your blade technique also seems like an intermediate level technique, and it has already been practiced to an extent that it has actually allowed you to clearly surpass a lot of core disciples. Yi Kongming asked. About this, even I do not know for sure, but it seems like I got sudden enlightenment which caused my cultivation to progress quickly. Yi Shiwen had already prepared an answer in case Yi Kongming was to ask about it. Enlightenment. Yi Kongming frowned, but he didn't doubt Yi Shiwen as he had watched him grow up and he knew very well that Yi Shiwen was not the kind of person who would lie. However, this matter about enlightenment was really unimaginable, and since it was without precedent so there was no way to explain it either. Attaboy. Yi Rushue patted on his shoulder. Gee, that arrogant kid Dong Fangbai actually fell face down in front of you. Yi Shiwen felt somewhat helpless because just now she seemed even more immature than Dong Fangbai. Although you won the championship, you cannot be too full of yourself because there are still many talented core disciples, and not to mention this world is very big and there are many geniuses out there, so remember not to become too complacent. Yi Kongming warned him as he didn't want him to become arrogant. Yes. Yi Shiwen said. 3 months later, the core disciples competition will be held jointly with Zhang family and you 3 siblings must support each other in the Blood Yuan territory. Yi Kongming said. Rest assured, father. Yi Rushue somewhat carelessly said, we will certainly help big brother in winning the first place. It's not your brother I am worried about, but your carelessness. At this time he interrupted her and said. Just like your brother is undergoing closed-door training, tomorrow you will also start the closed-door training for the next 3 months. Yi Kongming said. I know. Yi Rushue said while pouting. After dinner, Yi Shiwen did not stay but directly went back to his small yard and started cultivating. The championship prize was quite rich with a reward of 2,000 low-grade spirit stones, and later each month he would get 300 as monthly salary. Then compared to other disciples, his development would progress by leaps and bounds. Apart from these 2,000 low-grade spirit stones, the most important rewards were actually those 3 golden pills. These pills were actually a kind of well-known medicines in Yi Yuan school which when consumed could significantly enhance the current cultivation level. However, it was only rewarded to talented core disciples and this time, among the 5 disciples who got promoted to core disciples, only Yi Shiwen had received these golden pills. Yi Shiwen's plan was to first enhance his strength. Although his strength was quite dominating when compared to inner disciples, but he also understood that there were many talented and strong masters among the core disciples. And in time he would have no choice but to face them, so his first priority was to enhance his own strength. As long as he was strong enough, he would be able to deal with any challenge. Yi Shiwen took out a very small porcelain bottle from which he poured out yellow-colored medicine into his mouth then swallowed it down and simultaneously entered the mysterious space. 3 golden pills soon turned into heat and started flowing inside his body. The heat rose from his dantian and immediately the Zhen Qi started to madly revolve within his body and his face suddenly turned red. In this chaos of Zhen Qi inside his body the original stable state began to loosen up. Various insights about the bright jade power had started to swarm his mind in succession, which lead to further deepen his understanding of the Wudao. Boom! He did not know how long it took but his original firm state had finally been overthrown by a big torrent of energy. Hotian's 7th stage had been achieved. With the help of 3 golden pills, he had finally broken through to the Hotian's 7th stage directly from the peak of Hotian's 6th stage. Once again he had broken through his old state, and his strength had also increased drastically. He previously possessed the strength of 20 tigers which had directly increased to the terrific strength of 30 tigers after the breakthrough, which was much more than what he had expected. This was all because of that monkey wine which had granted him this hurricane-like strength. He looked outside and saw that it was still early morning then once again he started cultivating. Time passed rapidly and in a blink of an eye, a month had already gone. A figure could be seen in the forest located on the backside of the Qingfeng mountain. Missing Moon Beheader. With a soft shout, a figure shuttled inside the forest, the blade chi struck horizontally and all the surrounding trees could be seen successively falling on the ground. This missing moon beheader technique has reached the final boundary of practice. Yi Shiwen's Zhen Qi was automatically drying up the sweat on his body. All this time, he had totally submerged his mind and soul to practice cold moon beheader and had finally reached the Xiaocheng level. Although he had not reached the Deshang level, but even so his fighting strength had greatly increased. And even the attack range of New Moon Beheader was also not the same. Although Missing Moon Beheader was an individual attack, but when the blade was chopped down it would produce many blade shadows, each one similar to the other, but the total power would be terrifying. If practiced to the Deshang level, it would produce 9 overlapping blades, causing the full power to increase tenfold. And now Yi Shiwen had practiced to a level where he had only achieved a maximum of 5 overlapping blades at once, but the power could fully enlarge up to 3 times. In more than a month's time, Yi Shiwen's cultivation had reached the peak of Hotian's 7th stage, with his strength increasing to the strength of 50 tigers. Each of his blade strike had a heavy crushing force containing huge power, and in addition to that he had completely practiced the celestial step to the Deshang level. He had also practiced Missing Moon Beheader to the Xiaocheng level, so now he was confident enough to easily defeat any master of the Hotian 8th stage. Even if it was a master of the Hotian 9th stage, he could easily compete against him. It's not that he did not want to continue his cultivation, but he had completely consumed a total of 4,000 low-grade spirit stones while practicing Celestial Step and Missing Moon Beheader. He was once again penniless with not a spirit stone left. With the help of the mysterious space, his martial arts cultivation could progress very fast, but the required spirit stone consumption was simply too enormous. Now he had to find a way to earn spirit stones. Chapter 28. Down the hill. Yi Shiwen returned back to the Yi Yuan school from the back side of the Qingfeng mountain and went straight to the Gongda Palace. Here things like demon beast cores, herbs, etc., could be exchanged for school credits and vice versa. Meanwhile it was also possible to accept missions at Gongda Palace. Some of these missions were issued by outsiders, some by the school disciples, and some missions were issued even by the elders who would give strange and unusual rewards. But his main objective was getting low-grade spirit stones as reward. He wanted to earn spirit stones as fast as could, so in addition to hunting demon beasts, he had planned to take up missions as well. With varying degrees of difficulty, rewards would also be entirely different. These missions were divided into A, B, C and D rank missions, each corresponding to the elders, the core disciples, the inner disciples and the outer door disciples respectively. Higher-ranked missions would involve greater difficulty and at the same time, the reward would also be huge. Now being a core disciple, Yi Shiwen could take up rank B missions and above. There was a large crowd of disciples for rank C and D missions, but there were few disciples on the rank B side, just a small number of core disciples, and not to mention most of the core disciples were out on missions. Yi Shiwen glanced at the published mission board and compared rank B missions with the rank C and D missions. He noticed that these missions were frequently getting replaced, but replacement for rank B missions was not at all quick. Look for heavenly cold grass in the depths of Qingfeng Mountain. Rewards, 300 low-grade spirit stones. Look for a Blood Wolf King's crystal nucleus. Rewards, 500 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Shiwen glanced through the missions of varying difficulty and saw that the rewards were ranging from 100 to 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. For inner disciples, this was already an astronomical figure, and even for core disciples, it was not a small figure. After all, their monthly salary was only 300 low-grade spirit stones. However, the difficulty of these missions was quite high. For example, a Blood Wolf King was a terrifying demon beast which was considered at the peak of Hotian 8th stage. Even most of the core disciples could absolutely not complete this mission, let alone inner disciples. Yi Shiwen's eyes skimming through the missions stopped on a relatively new mission which had been added that very day. Escort Qingfeng trading firm in transporting a batch of medicine ingredients to the Tianyuan city. Rewards, 3,000 low-grade spirit stones. Requirements, Hotian 7th stage or above. Yi Shiwen's eyes suddenly lit up after seeing the reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones for this mission. If he could receive these 3,000 low-grade spirit stones as reward, then undoubtedly these could solve his urgent needs. Then Missing Moon Beheader could be practiced to the Deshang level and even his cultivation could further increase. But for an ordinary escort duty, the reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones was quite exaggerated, as it would take almost a year even for a core disciple to save so many low-grade spirit stones. Even this mission's requirements were quite high, as Hotian's 7th stage disciples or above were considered top masters among the core disciples. Yiyuan School was located atop the Qingfeng Mountain, and Qingfeng Trading Firm was situated in Qingfeng Town, which was located at the base of Qingfeng Mountain. Qingfeng Trading Firm was the largest trading firm in town and usually did business of medicinal ingredients. Tianyuan City was the nearest city from the Qingfeng Mountain, only about half a day away. If left early in the morning, one could reach there by evening. There were many escort missions among rank C or D missions, however the reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones was absolutely rare. But anyway, right now he was in a dire need of spirit stones, so how could he ignore this mission? He took up the mission, and a steward informed him that he would have to visit Qingfeng Trading Firm the very next morning. After taking up the mission, he did not stay long in the Gongda Palace. He went back straight to his small courtyard to continue the closed-door training. Inside the special space, Yi Shiwen's figure could be seen showing endless maneuvers. It was so quick that in just few steps it would appear very far away. Celestial Step was a high-level power technique, and just now, its might had been completely demonstrated by Yi Shiwen, proving that he had already practiced it to the Desheng level. But Yi Shiwen had a feeling that this was far from reaching the limit, as if he had reached a bottleneck, and this was definitely not the end. Yi Shiwen knew that this Celestial Step was actually a Xiantian-level power technique, but since it was incomplete, so he could only practice as a high-level power technique. But under normal circumstances, he might have practiced it to a profound realm if he could somehow get the missing parts of Celestial Step. However, after practicing in the special space, he discovered something else. After he achieved the Desheng level and continued to practice, he unexpectedly found out that he could still continue to practice. Moreover, some of the original missing information related to Celestial Step was also coming into his mind, which also included some mysterious profound contents. Yi Shiwen felt completely stunned to find out that this special space could not only just accelerate the speed of martial arts practice, but it could also help him deduce the original missing parts of a technique. If this was the case, then it was quite excellent. Now he could obtain a Xiantian level technique for free, and including Cold Moon Beheader and Bright Jade Power, he would be carrying 3 Xiantian level techniques. If he could practice all 3 of these techniques to Desheng level, then the end result would be terrible. Many Xiantian experts weren't able to practice 3 Xiantian level techniques. At that time, he would attain an even higher level of strength. However, it was obvious that deducing the rest of the power technique would require a lot of spirit stones, and these were the things that he needed the most right now. He had a lot of hope from this mission. Soon the sky brightened up. Yi Shiwen went out of the school and descended from the mountain along the mountain road. He came down the first mountain so easily that he got confused, and after a short period of confusion, he finally had a firm grasp of his enhanced strength, and thanks to that, this time he had both the ability and opportunity to go down the mountain and have a look. Qingfeng Town was located down the Qingfeng Mountain, although claimed to be a town, but the population was over 10,000. Many warriors would come down and go up the mountain, as Yiyuan School was located at the top. Many warriors from foreign lands would also visit because there were a lot of demon beasts in the Qingfeng Mountain, and these warriors would enter the forest to hunt them. Gradually a very prosperous town had formed here. Yi Shiwen had descended the mountain several times before, and he knew where Qingfeng Trading Firm was located, and since it was a big place, it was quite easy to find it too. An attendant was standing at the trading firm's entrance, and as soon as he saw Yi Shiwen, he came forward and asked, "Are you the outstanding disciple from Yiyuan School who will take up our trading firm's escort mission?" Yiyuan School had quite a lofty reputation in this neighborhood. "Yes." Yi Shiwen nodded. "Then please come with me," the attendant said. Chapter 29. Conflict in the trading firm. Yi Shiwen followed the attendant into the Qingfeng trading firm, but suddenly he heard a shout and stopped. "Brother Wen." Yi Shiwen turned to look and actually saw Wang Lai striding joyfully to catch up. He laughed and said, "I did not expect that it was you, man." "Greetings, fourth son." The attendant walked up to Wang Lai and said with respect, "Fourth son, is this trading firm owned by your family?" Yi Shiwen got surprised for a moment, but he knew that Wang Lai's family was quite influential in this region, but who would have thought that his family actually owned the Qingfeng trading firm? "Yes, but what are you doing here?" Wang Lai looked somewhat puzzled and asked him. "I picked up an escort mission, so I came over." Yi Shiwen replied. "You have received this mission." Wang Lai looked a bit serious. "Well, it does not matter, now I would like to greet you on behalf of this firm." After Wang Lai dismissed the attendant, Yi Shiwen spoke once again and said, "What is going on? Your family is actually willing to pay a reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones for an escort mission. Actually, this reward is not being paid out by our family." Wang Lai said, after all, the reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones was definitely not a small number for any party, not to mention, he was just one man receiving this reward. "Our family's trading firm is actually regarded as a subordinate of Tianyuan City Lord." Wang Lai slowly explained, "For a long time our family has been collecting medicinal ingredients and some other stuff for the City Lord Palace. This time, we have to escort a batch of medicinal ingredients to City Lord Palace, and your rewards are also being given out by City Lord Palace and not by my family." Wang Lai said. "Which medicinal ingredients are so important, that City Lord Palace has attached so much importance to them?" Yi Shiwen asked. Although Tianyuan City was only a small city located at the border region of Great Yu State and could not be compared with the big cities located in the interior region of Great Yu State. However, it also had a population of more than 200,000, plus including some affiliated towns, the total population count would cross 500,000 people. The fate of these 500,000 people was held in the hands of City Lord Palace, and in addition to that, being close to the Qingfeng mountain, the medicinal ingredients and other stuff available on the mountain were quite easily accessible to the City Lord Palace, considering its huge influence. "I don't know. Even my father avoids talking about this matter, so how could I possibly know?" Wang Lai said with a forced smile. Yi Shiwen understood very well that Wang family was not as harmonious as his own family, because Wang Lai's father had established quite a big business. Wang Lai had 3 ambitious elder brothers and he was the youngest, born of a maidservant. When Wang Lai was born, his 3 elder brothers had already reached adulthood and had taken over the family business, and even his nephews and nieces were almost the same age as his. In fact, he didn't have a high status of a prince in his family, which is why he would always spend his time cultivating on the Qingfeng mountain rather than staying at home with his family. "I was looking for your help, but couldn't find you this whole month," Wang Lai said. "I had gone to the back side of the mountain to cultivate." Yi Shiwen replied without hiding anything. "You have become quite a cultivation maniac." Wang Lai said, although he had been unable to see through Yi Shiwen's cultivation since the last meeting, but obviously after a month, his cultivation now had become even more inscrutable. Yi Shiwen smiled but did not speak anything. Wang Lai's talent was quite good, otherwise his cultivation would not have been faster than Yi Shiwen's, but he was quite lazy by nature and would easily get tired of cultivating, otherwise, by now he would already have reached the Hotian 5th stage. Both of them, while chatting and laughing, went inside a hall on the 2nd floor of the Qingfeng trading firm. Inside the hall, they saw 10 or so warriors from the sandwiching regiment standing firmly on each side. These were the experts invited by the Qingfeng trading firm. "Yo, isn't this Wang Lai?" Suddenly a youth dressed up in Chinese clothes came out from among those 10 or more warriors and walked up to them. Wang Lai's complexion got somewhat unsightly. He whispered to Yi Shiwen and explained that this was his brother's eldest son, called Wang Ding, and they were never on good terms with each other. "Gee, I have got fine warriors on my side, but what have you got on your end, a kid who has not even weaned yet?" Wang Ding gave out an unbridled laugh. "Ha ha ha ha." At Wang Ding's sarcastic words, those warriors gave out a loud laughter. "You fools, he is the champion of this year's school inner weighing at Yi Yuan School." Wang Lai said with a red complexion on his face. Ha ha ha, I have heard of the competition at the Yuan school. Isn't the champion of this competition a kid who has not even grown facial hair, has not even seen the sight of blood yet? I can beat 5 kids like him at once. A 30-year-old warrior laughed and said. Rest of the warriors also had an appearance of approval, although Yuan school's reputation was quite illustrious, but for these warriors who had seen lots of blood and their lives hanging from the edge of a knife on the battlefield, these Yuan disciples were nothing more than flowers in the greenhouse. Most of those warriors were at least at the Hotian 6th stage, some were even at the early Hotian 8th stage. All of these warriors looked very imposing, because they had seen blood on the battlefield and had even killed people. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen moved and very next instant his figure flashed like an immortal himself and appeared in front of that insolent warrior, then his palm slapped. Bang! That insolent warrior was fiercely slapped, and a mouthful of teeth had been broken and extracted out by this attack. His body flew off like a kite and severely hit the wall above. This direct hit from his body had caused a dense spider web-like fine lines on the wall, then his body rolled down. No one knew whether he was still alive or dead. You court death, do you really think you can casually insult Yuan school like this? Yi Shiwen said blankly. Quiet. There was a pin-drop silence in the hall. Somehow a warrior of peak Hotian 6th stage had actually been smacked down to death by Yi Shiwen. All of the warriors were stunned, then suddenly several warriors got furious. He even dared to hurt 4th brother. Cripple him. Break all the bones in his body. Several warriors had gotten furious and had rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Most of them were already at the peak of Hotian 6th stage, and some were at the Hotian 7th stage. The scene looked threatening. Yi Shiwen stood there fearless, then rushed using the celestial step and launched rushing thunder hand instantly. Bang! A warrior was slapped by his palm and screamed, then went flying out of the window. Bang! Another warrior was kicked by Yi Shiwen and severely hit the pillar. None of these warriors were his match, they had completely lost to Yi Shiwen's monstrous strength and had fell face down on the ground. Chapter 30, Qingfeng Stronghold. Wang Lai, how dare you wound a warrior invited by our family? Wang Ding suddenly got furious. Wang Ding, I am your uncle, I guess your father has not taught you about respecting the elders. Seeing Yi Shiwen's godly strength, Wang Lai's heart had calmed down, so he answered back without any hesitation and said. You are defending this loser, did not you hear what he just said? He was clearly insulting the Yuan school, and if this endangers our Wang family, then are you prepared to take responsibility for that? Wang Ding got very furious after being scolded by Wang Lai. He was mad at those worthless warriors, for him each and every one of them were weaklings who had lost to a kid like Yi Shiwen. Wang Lai, you wait for me. Wang Ding's complexion was unsightly, saying those words in a ruthless manner. He left bitterly. So cool, that small bastard will never look down on me. Wang Lai said while laughing. The gazes falling on Yi Shiwen had clearly changed, now they did not dare to underestimate him like before. When do we set out? Yi Shiwen asked Wang Lai. We will set out in afternoon and enter the city at night. Wang Lai replied. Enter the city at night? To hide from whom? Yi Shiwen knew that Wang Lai probably did not know much, otherwise considering the strong friendship between those two, there was no reason to hide. After a while, Wang Lai got busy with other things and Yi Shiwen found a place to sit down and closed his eyes. In the morning came a dozen more warriors who were also at the Hotian 6th stage or above, and looked quite strong. I thank everybody for taking up this mission. At noon, the door opened and entered a slightly hunchbacked old man. I am the housekeeper Wang Daing, the one responsible for leading this mission. So this is the senior once called Quick Knife Wang, I have always looked forward to meeting you. A warrior approached cupping one hand over the other across his chest and said. Originally 20 years ago, he was renowned as the Quick Knife Wang Daing of the Qingfeng mountain region, who would have thought he has actually become a servant of Wang family. Thank you for your cooperation everybody, please get ready, we will leave soon. Wang De-ing said in a deep voice. After everyone had arrived and ready to go, Wang family troops hit the road under the protection of a talent like Yi Shiwen to transport the medicinal ingredients, but allowing Yi Shiwen to be the escort was quite strange. Even the Wang family princes had not accompanied them, just an old housekeeper and some guards from the Wang family. Even Wang Lai had also not accompanied them. Yi Shiwen couldn't relax because he felt that this escort mission was quite strange. Escorting a medicinal ingredient for a reward of 3,000 low-grade spirit stones clearly explained that it was definitely a very important mission. Higher difficulty missions would be directly proportional to the reward associated. However, for this mission Wang family had only sent an old housekeeper, which was somewhat strange. At this time many of those warriors also felt that something was strange. These people had lived dangerous lives and were quite experienced. They could clearly sense this strangeness and were keeping their mouths shut. The team slowly moved forward, and after about an hour had passed, they suddenly felt some disturbance ahead. Chen Long and Chen Hu, the two great leaders of the Qingfeng stronghold, have actually come to us. This is unexpected, but this is a cargo of ordinary herbal medicine and is definitely not worth both leaders to personally come for. Wang De-ying's voice spread out from the front. Qingfeng stronghold. There was a commotion among the warriors, because Qingfeng stronghold's reputation was considered very illustrious in this neighborhood. In the nearby regions of the Qingfeng mountain, the people were quite sturdy and valiant, much like mountain bandits, and Qingfeng stronghold was one of the largest groups. Chen Long and Chen Hu were the two notorious leaders of this stronghold, and were said to be extremely powerful, and the cultivation of both of these brothers was also at the peak of Hotian 8th stage. Once the two joined forces, even a master of the Hotian 9th stage wouldn't stand a chance against them. As far as these warriors were concerned, these two Qingfeng stronghold leaders were like a great deterrent. It really is just common herbal medicine, Wang De-ing. You used to be quite skilled in the past. On top of that you are a senior. Do not fool us, bullying us two brothers using your knowledge and experience. In front of the team stood a troop of 100 persons blocking the road, led by two persons of sturdy frame with rough appearance. These two persons, Chen Long and Chen Hu, were actually the leaders of the Qingfeng stronghold. Certainly not, but our Qingfeng trading firm and your Qingfeng stronghold have always minded our own business. Now why are you trying to make things difficult for both of us? Wang De-ing said calmly in a deep voice. We do not want to make things difficult for you. As long as you hand over those herbal medicines to us, our brothers would let you all go unhurt. Chen Long said. Humph, it seems that, you two leaders have turned on our Qingfeng trading firm, although our firm is always kind with others, but it does not mean we are weak, so do not think so highly of yourselves. Wang De-ing continued. Cut the crap, do you think we have not thought about it before? People die for money just like birds die in pursuit of food. I will bet on this chance afterwards. Do you think we brothers would still be in this area? Chen Hu said while laughing. Do not talk nonsense. Since you are willing to teach them, then do not blame our brothers for being brutal. You all are most welcome to die. Immediately a group of bandits from Qingfeng stronghold shouted and rushed over, and the two leaders led those bandits while laughing loudly to kill everyone. Everybody, kill! Wang De-ing roared. He suddenly took a step and skimmed on the air. A long blade was drawn and the cold tip of the blade illuminated, and a burst of twisting sword-shaped chi rushed towards Chen Long and Chen Hu, then chopped down. Qingfeng stronghold two leaders took out their weapons, the wolf-tooth clubs, and used them to defend against the incoming blade attack. Boom! Long blade and wolf-tooth clubs fiercely clashed against each other, and the ferocious chi spread out from this collision, causing terrible winds to blow everywhere. Ha ha ha, I did not expect the so-called quick knife Wang De-ing to be so weak. Chen Long laughed loudly while tying down Wang De-ing. Ha ha ha, this quick knife is just a so-so, old man, you are very old. Chen Hu's also laughed and said. Chen Hu's big and sturdy wolf-tooth club swept away, breaking the bones of the firm guards who were in the range of this attack. What to do? These two are too strong. If nobody stopped Chen Hu, then we all will get massacred by him. A warrior said with a pale face. Rest of the warriors were scared. They definitely didn't have expected that they would actually encounter two leaders of the Qingfeng stronghold. This escort mission was definitely not simple. Suddenly a voice rushed out towards Chen Hu. Chapter 31, 5 Blades to Behead Chen Hu. Bang! Chen Hu laughed and smashed his club on a Qingfeng firm's guard and killed him. At this time, Wang Deying had been caught by Chen Long. Although Wang Deying's strength was tyrannical, but Chen Long was also at the peak of 8th stage, and was more ferocious than Wang Deying. The famous quick knife Wang Deying could not get rid of the clutch of Chen Long and could only helplessly watch Chen Hu slaughtering everyone. Chen Hu, come to die! Yi Shiwen gave a loud shout, slashing a long blade which was shining like a bright moon and attacked him. Yi Shiwen had been entrusted by Qingfeng trading firm to protect everybody taking part in this escort mission, not to mention the matter also involved Wang Lai's family, so Yi Shiwen would naturally lend a helping hand. Boom! The long blade and the wolf-tooth club severely clashed against each other, causing a loud sound of explosion. How is this possible? Chen Hu's eyes flashed with astonishment. Hotian's 7th stage. Blade of a master of Hotian's 7th stage can actually have such power. Chen Hu's eyes widened with astonishment, but no matter how much talented you are, you will die at my hands. Chen Hu grinned then said, I would love to kill a genius like you. Chen Hu's wolf-tooth club danced in front of Yi Shiwen, and it seemed that it would crack his brain in a moment. Cold Moon Beheader. Yi Ziwen's blade also chopped out, causing a burst of whirlwind everywhere. Boom! Both of their Zhenqi severely clashed together, causing a shock wave, and the sand and pebbles flew out in all directions. Dang dang dang! Yi Shiwen had to withdraw a few steps, because his strength was lesser than Chen Hu. However, if only his cultivation was at the Hotian 8th stage, then he would easily have defeated Chen Hu by now. Good boy! Chen Hu withdrew 2 steps and killing intention grew deeper in his eyes, although his facial features were rough, but he was not stupid like other bandits, otherwise he would not be the leader of Qingfeng stronghold. Wolf-tooth club attacked so fast and fiercely and smashed the air into 2 halves, and it seemed that if it had smashed into a man then it would have absolutely turned him into a meat patty. Chen Hu took few steps, then his whole huge body instantly flew into the air and severely smashed down from the midair. Shrill piercing sound echoed around Yi Shiwen, and the fierce wind caused by the huge club was stinging and quite painful for everyone. Yi Shiwen shouted and his long blade danced, although his strength was comparatively lesser, but both looked equally strong while fighting. Missing Moon Beheader. Yi Shiwen shouted and his long blade danced violently. Boom! Chen Hu was repelled by Yi Ziwen's long blade and retreated several steps, then he chopped down the second blade from Missing Moon Beheader. Chen Hu's arm got numb from Yi Ziwen's unexpected second blade attack. Bang! Third blade. Chen Hu didn't get enough time to respond, and the third blade had already chopped down, causing his thick thighs to tremble. Bang! Fourth blade. Kara. Chen Hu's leg was broken and he started trembling. He could not hold himself and fell down on the ground. What is this blade? Chen Hu got frightened and said. Yi Ziwen's blade technique was quite terrifying, because successive blades would overlap, causing the overall strength to increase by several times, forming a chain of quick and speedy blade attacks and displaying the superimposed power thoroughly. Missing Moon Beheader. Yi Shiwen shouted and chopped down the 5th blade, and it seemed as if the essence of the previous blades had concentrated in this final blade attack, giving it a terrifying power. Puchi! Yi Shiwen had cut Chen Hu into 2 halves. All the eyes were stunned while looking at this scene. They were shocked to find out that the one who was split in half was actually that infamous leader Chen Hu. Compared to Yi Shiwen, a Yi Yuan school disciple, Chen Hu had been infamous for many years because being a leader of Qingfeng stronghold, his reputation was quite illustrious in this neighborhood. However, he had actually died at the hands of Yi Shiwen, and this result had shocked everyone. The mess caused by Yi Shiwen looked ferocious. Many of the warriors gasped, swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Crap, he is so ferocious. A warrior voiced the feelings of almost everyone. Chen Hu, who had been infamous for so many years, but just how old was this Yi Shiwen? Not even 20 years old, but still had beheaded an infamous master of the peak 8th stage. He definitely would have a promising future ahead. Little brother. Chen Long shouted, Qingfeng trading firm, we brothers will kill all of you. Chen Long roared furiously at Wang Daying, and threw his club at him mercilessly. You all are courting death, do you think you can make a comeback now? After witnessing the beheading of Chen Hu by Yi Shiwen, he was overjoyed. He moved quickly like a frantic whirlwind and his sharp blade attacked very fast, which was almost comparable to Yi Ziwen's new moon beheader, forming a blade wind storm. Wang Deying's strength was similar to the strength of Chen Long, but he was shocked at his younger brother's death and had become more violent, but Wang Deying's tactics and experience worked well against Chen Long's mindless attacks. After that, it took less than 10 strokes for Wang Deying's blade to behead Chen Long. With the two leaders beheaded, the rest of the bandits of Qingfeng's stronghold suddenly quit en masse. But Wang Deying had gotten quite furious from this. He suddenly shouted, kill all of these bastards. Now that these bandits were without a leader, the warriors hired by the Qingfeng trading firm were more than enough to handle these bandits. Only after a little bit of effort, they had all been wiped out. After a while, all of the bandits had been beheaded by the warriors. By now, everyone had realized that completing this escort mission would not be an easy job. Many thanks, son, for protecting our firm in danger. Wang Deying approached Yi Shiwen and said. His eyes were full of surprise because he had not expected this young man could actually behead Chen Hu. Although he himself was quite powerful, but he also knew that fighting both of those Chen brothers would have proved dangerous for him. However, he really did not expect this young man to be so useful in such a critical situation. I have been entrusted by Wang family to protect everyone involved in this escort mission, and I am also a childhood friend of Wang Lai, so helping out is obvious. Yi Shiwen said. So you are a friend of our fourth young master. Wang Deying had not expected for Wang Lai to be acquainted with such a powerful master. It seems calling someone from Yiyuan school was a right decision. Anyway, this time you have helped our firm a lot, so wait until we arrive at Tianyuan City, there you receive a warm welcome. Yi Shiwen nodded. He had not shifted responsibility onto others, he worked so hard just for the sake of getting spirit stones. Chapter 32, Tianyuan City. Sun had set and the team had finally arrived at Tianyuan City at night. Being a city of 200,000 people, the walls were very tall, a full 10 meters in height, and after arriving at night they saw many pedestrians on the streets. After their encounter with the Qingfeng stronghold bandits, the team was being very careful in the route to Tianyuan City but did not encounter any danger and had successfully arrived at Tianyuan City. After the group had arrived outside the city gate, Wang Deying cupped one hand into the other across the chest and said, this time you all have worked hard, we will pay everyone properly as promised, injured and killed people will get additional compensation. Senior, you are so polite, this is something we do for living. Suddenly many warriors said to Wang Deying, in any case, arriving safely at Tianyuan City could be considered as completing the mission successfully. Although they had not expected being attacked by Qingfeng stronghold bandits, but after that they didn't encounter any more bandits because seeing such a big parade, bandits didn't dare to approach them. They started lining up to enter the Tianyuan City gate. Wait a minute, what are those things you are carrying? I want to check. This time, a 30-year-old officer came over with few soldiers. Head officer, we are the escort team from Qingfeng trading firm. Wang Deying said. I don't care who you people are, I will inspect all the goods before you take them inside the city, to confirm that there are no illegal items inside. The officer said rudely. Please don't joke around, head officer, these things have been sent by Qingfeng trading firm so they are possibly be contraband goods. Wang Deying smiled and said. I have already decided, brothers, search for me. The officer commanded. Head officer, I do not know whose slanderous talks you are listening to, however, these herbs belong to the city lord palace, are you sure you still want to inspect? Sensing the threatening attitude of head officer, Wang Deying also stopped showing any signs of weakness. City Lord Palace my ass, it is the lousy government which protects the city not the City Lord Palace, so go away otherwise do no blame me for being impolite. The officer threatened. Wang Deying's complexion suddenly became gloomy as this officer unexpectedly belonged to the city guard government. City guard government and City Lord Palace were the two major systems active in the city. Some cities in U-State were under the control of both the City Guard government and City Lord Palace and some were individually ruled by each. Generally speaking, City Lord Palace and City Guard government were not on good terms. Struggle for power was a common thing, although in theory the city belonged to the City Lord but City Guard government was also working behind the scenes. So who actually was in charge of the entire city depended on their individual strengths. This situation was quite common in remote cities like Tianyuan City. Phew! Head officer suddenly heard a sharp piercing sound and arrived a sharp arrow flying and instantly shot through his head. Bang! The officer's head exploded, red and white brains scattered everywhere. Idiot, a petty officer like you dares to look down upon City Lord Palace. A cold voice came over, people from Qingfeng trading firm, sorry, I'm late. Everyone looked surprised. From a distance a group of people were walking slowly towards them. This group was being led by a 20-year-old youth who was clad in a Chinese gown, holding a bow in his hands. Not at all, but I did not expect for the third son to personally come to receive us. Wang De-ing bowed and said. This is the third son of City Lord, Su Zhen. The warriors said who knew about him. He is the genius son of City Lord, although he is just 25 years old and is already at the peak of Hotian 8th stage. Peak of Hotian 8th stage, my god. The killing of the head officer had already caused the City Lord Palace and City Guard government to become incompatible like fire and water. Many warriors were amazed, even at the Yuan school those who were able to achieve such results at this age were considered genius. Yi Shiwen also glanced at the third son who looked like a firm character, as he had instantly killed that officer mercilessly without thinking twice. My father was busy, so I came over. This escort mission of herbal medicine must have been hard for you all. Su Zhen said while smiling. This time we encountered Qingfeng stronghold bandits. If not for Yi Shiwen, a disciple from Yuan school, we would have been in danger for sure. Wang De-ing said, Yi Shiwen is the champion from this year's competition at Yuan school. So he is the outstanding disciple from Yuan school, no wonder no wonder. After hearing in detail about the bandit incident from Wang De-ing, Su Zhen could not help but feel amazed at Yi Ziwen's outstanding performance. Yuan school had an illustrious reputation in this neighborhood, and being able to become a champion among the inner disciples was not easy feat. There was no doubt that he was a true genius. We will now advance into the city. Su Zhen said. Yi Shiwen walked into the city and the escorted herbs were sent to City Lord Palace. Everyone was settled in an inn and after having dinner, Yi Shiwen got the reward as agreed before. 3,000 low-grade spirit stones, a special reward of 1,000 low-grade spirit stones from Qingfeng trading firm as well as 2,000 low-grade spirit stones as bonus from City Lord Palace because he had beheaded Chen Hu, who was an infamous bandit, so naturally there was a huge bounty on him. All of a sudden, he had earned a total of 6,000 low-grade spirit stones. This amount was quite huge for other core disciples, but for him it was just a temporary relief. With these 6,000 low-grade spirit stones, the missing moon beheader could be practiced to Xiaocheng level, then he would be able to chop out a series of 7 blades and the attack power would also increase twice. Then he would be able to fight confidently even against a master of Hotian 9th stage. For others, these spirit stones were only to assist the cultivation and nothing more, but for Yi Shiwen, as long as there were enough spirit stones, his cultivation would continue to increase rapidly and breaking into the next stage would not be a problem. Bold, who unexpectedly dares to rush into the City Lord Palace. Yi Shiwen was going to start cultivating but suddenly he heard a loud shout which suddenly burst over the whole city and spread far and wide in all directions. Yi Shiwen suddenly reacted, because this definitely was the roar of a Xiantian master. as the inn was situated close to the Lord Palace so he could listen to it very clearly. In Tianyuan City there were only two Xiantian masters, one was the city lord and other was an individual from city guard. Chapter 33, Xiantian Pellet. Although there were more than 20 Xiantian experts in Yuan school, but it took many years for the school to accumulate so many experts. In addition to that, Yuan school was also backed by the Great Yu State, which was one of the four major schools. It also possessed numerous resources and wealth which were far greater than other power when compared. Generally speaking, it was not easy for dozens of warriors at the peak of Hotian 9th stage to step into the Xiantian realm. However, if Yuan school held such a huge influence, then the success rate would greatly enhance. A Xiantian expert was good enough to become the city guard of a small city. Obviously, the status of a Xiantian expert was quite high and extraordinary in the eyes of people. So, the one who had shouted this time was definitely the city lord. Haha, I had not expected that you still haven't refined a Xiantian pellet. I will come again next time. A frivolous laughter soon shook the entire city. So it was actually the Xiantian pellet. Everyone knew that it was very difficult to become a Xiantian expert. One needed to first open up the bridge between heaven and earth, then second step was to break open the two meridians and allow the Zhen Qi to grow endlessly, then only one would be able to enter the Xiantian realm. Only few experts could successfully enter the Xiantian realm, but there were some medicines to help in forcefully opening up the two meridians and Xiantian pellet was one of the most famous ones. Naturally it was evident that a lot of Hotian realm warriors were going to have a bloody war competing over the Xiantian pellets. The city lord was refining Xiantian pellets, and this news had spread throughout the city overnight. For a long time, City Lord Palace possessed the secret formula for refining Xiantian pellet, and had been secretly collecting the required medicinal ingredients. Now that the required ingredients had finally been collected, City Lord had successfully refined Xiantian pellets. Once this message was spread out, it would definitely attract many spies, especially a lot of Hotian 9th stage masters, who would definitely not miss this opportunity to get a Xiantian pellet. Once a warrior entered into the Xiantian realm, his power would increase dramatically, and most importantly, his life force would also greatly enhance, causing the life expectancy to increase to 200 years. Many warriors of the Hotian 9th stage were anxious because their lives were slowly approaching towards exhaustion, and if they did not find a way to reach the Xiantian realm, they would eventually die of old age. Whether it was to survive or to achieve great strength, these warriors would absolutely not let go of this chance to get a Xiantian pellet. So, there was going to be a bloody battle amongst them competing over this pellet. Even Yi Shiwen was interested in this Xiantian pellet. Originally, after finishing this escort mission, he had planned to return to the Yuan school, but now he had decided to stay and take a look at the situation. To Yi Shiwen, enhancing the strength was his top priority. Because at his current strength, it would be difficult for him to handle a master of the Hotian 9th stage, or even a Xiantian master. Right now he was at the peak of Hotian 7th stage, one more step and he could break through to the Hotian 8th stage. After that, he would be able to fight against the masters of the Hotian 9th stage and even give them a tough battle. For others, how could this breakthrough be so simple, but he had the special space and as long as there were enough spirit stones, breaking through to the Hotian 8th stage was simply not a problem for him. Yi Shiwen soon entered into the special space and started meditating. He started to practice the bright jade power. He did not know for how long the spirit stones continued to burn, producing the Ling Qi which was continuously entering into the special space. Yi Shiwen started to get new insights about the bright jade power, which like a powerful torrent entered into his mind and caused a strong impact on the barrier of his current cultivation state. As the time passed, his strength also went on increasing constantly. Boom! He did not know how long it took for that torrent of information to completely break the barrier of his cultivation state. His body produced crackling sound. All of his bones were colliding with each other, his body was covered with filth and he successfully reached the Hotian 8th stage. Fewer impurities oozed out of his body, compared to the last time, when he had broken through to the Hotian 4th stage. Although he had cultivated for a night, he was still full of energy because he had broken through to the Hotian 8th stage and now his strength had directly reached the strength of 70 tigers. His strength had experienced a rapid development and now he was capable of beheading even the warriors of Hotian 9th stage. Now he was powerful enough to participate in the coming Xiantian pellet competition. Overnight, the message spread among the numerous warriors in the city. I never thought City Lord was actually secretly refining a Xiantian pellet. Gee, wait until the City Lord uses this Xiantian pellet, then there will be no room left for the city guard to dominate this city. However, this Xiantian pellet will attract many powerful experts, and even with the power of City Lord, I'm afraid they will be unstoppable. In the morning, all the warriors were discussing about this matter at the inn. Gee, have you not seen, last night, several famous experts of peak Hotian 9th stage rushed into the city? Absolutely, this morning, I saw that great Qingqing City Lord personally came to request a Xiantian pellet for his only son. In a flash, a few days had already passed and the news had gradually spread far and wide like a huge fire. Many famous masters had arrived, and this matter had even attracted the great Qingqing City Lord, a Xiantian expert. Qingfeng Mountain was located in the southwest region, far away from the central regions of Yu State, where a Xiantian expert would naturally attract the attention of everyone. Great Qingcheng was the nearest city from Tianyuan City. Its size and population were almost similar to that of Tianyuan City, and Qingcheng City Lord was also a master of the Xiantian realm. Great Qingcheng City Lord had come for the sake of his only son, who had been a master of the peak Hotian 9th stage for a long time. However, even if these famous masters had dared to arrive into the Tianyuan city, the city lord had still remained silent. Every night many experts would try to sneak into the city lord palace, although, most of them were quite miserable as city lord palace guards were very strict and would openly shoot arrows at them, killing many in the process. One night, 23 experts, who were trying to cause trouble, were killed at the city lord palace. Yi Shiwen was not too much concerned about this matter because he was concentrating on consolidating his newly obtained stage. In the room, Yi Shiwen took a long breath and opened his eyes. He had fully consolidated the newly obtained realm, and had also successfully pushed to middle of Hotian 8th stage. Now he could easily face the masters of peak Hotian 9th stage. However, he had already consumed 1,500 low-grade spirit stones, leaving only 4,500 in his stock. Chapter 34, Auction. Although 4,500 low-grade spirit stones still remained in his stock, but for Yi Shiwen, they were still not enough. The consumption rate of spirit stones was simply too high and it had further increased with the increasing pace of cultivation. Yi Shiwen got up early in the morning, but he did not continue to shut himself in the room, rather his plan was to visit the city's largest auction house, Tianin Auction House. He wanted to visit the Tianin Auction House because City Lord had finally made an official statement that he had successfully refined 4 Xiantian pellets, 2 for his personal use and the rest 2 would be auctioned in the city's largest auction house, the Tianin Auction House. The auction was going to start in 3 days. The Tianin Auction House had already become the target of public discussions. If this was a general auction house, then it would not have lasted long in front of so many powerful warriors of the 9th stage, but Tianin Auction House was quite influential. It had branches in many cities and its headquarters was located in the capital city of Big U State. It had a great influence in the Big U State region, so how could these warriors cause trouble for it? Yi Shiwen was planning to go and take a look, because this month at the Tianin Auction House, someone might have something good to auction which might benefit him. Tianin Auction House was very famous in Tianyuan town, so it was quite easy for Yi Shiwen to locate it. When he saw the Tianin Auction House for the first time, he suddenly felt overwhelmed. No wonder it was called the largest auction house of the state. Weekdays were already very busy at Tianin Auction House, and this time it was even more crowded due to the inflow of a large number of warriors. Fortunately, the inside of the auction house was very spacious, otherwise it would have been impossible for so many of those warriors to go inside and participate in the auction. As Yi Shiwen was about to go in, he was stopped by a guard saying it was required to pay the fee of 5 low-grade spirit stones before entering the auction house. Yi Shiwen suddenly got furious, but when he saw other people honestly paying the entrance fee, he did not say anything but paid the fee and entered the auction house. Yi Shiwen quickly took a seat. Tianyin auction house held 10 or so auctions every day, and each auction continued for an hour, so one could enter any time and bid. He sat in the common seating area, and on the second floor there was a VIP reserved box where only honored guests could sit. Bang! The wooden mallet hit on the table, causing the sound to spread throughout the auction area. An old man in white robe appeared with few documents in one hand and holding a mallet in another. Yi Shiwen looked at the man and was stunned, because this white-robed old man was actually a master of the Hotian 9th stage. Tianyin auction house was quite formidable, and had actually sent an expert of the 9th stage to manage the auction. However, in the past few days, City Lord's announcement about the Xiantian pellets auction had attracted a lot of strong warriors to come to participate in the auction. If a master was not sent over to oversee these guys, then they would definitely destroy the city along with themselves. Thank you all for attending today's first auction in spite of your busy schedules. I believe that, like always, the auction organized by our auction house will not let you down. The white-robe old man said very slowly. I believe everyone knows the rules, so I won't repeat them. Now we will immediately start the auction. The first item of this auction is a long double-edged sword made of high-quality alloy. It is also a high-grade weapon. The old man in white robes said. At this time, a maid approached holding a silver tray and put it on the table. The white-robed old man took off the red cloth from the silver tray, and all could see the fine workmanship of this light red long double-edged sword lying quietly on the tray. Yi Shiwen had no use for this kind of sword, because what he had practiced was a blade technique which required a blade. Also he felt that his own blade was far superior to this light red long sword. However, he had not noticed that there were a lot of people looking enviously at the man who had won the bidding and bought this double-edged long sword for 200 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Shiwen certainly knew that this was just an appetizer and the real deal was yet to reveal itself. The Tianyin auction house continued the auction and brought awesome weapons or treasures one after the other, but none of these could win his heart and were practically useless to him. That is why he did not participate in the bidding for these items. Gradually the people sitting in the VIP box began to bid one after the other in succession, and the price they were offering was very large as compared to those sitting in the common area. Those honored guests undoubtedly had a very distinguished and domineering aura compared to those common warriors sitting underneath in the common seating area. After about half an hour, suddenly the old man's words, explaining about the next auction item, piqued Yi Ziwen's interest. Next we will auction a secret book. The white-robed old man said with a smile. It is a type power technique which is used to train the body in according to our appraisers. It is possibly a Xiantian level power technique, but unfortunately it is incomplete. However, it is also no less than an intermediate level power technique. Then he opened up the red cloth and everyone saw a somewhat tattered secret book. The inscription over it said Tyrant Body Technique. The minimum price for this Tyrant Body Technique has been set to 200 low-grade spirit stones. The old man in white robes said. If it was a complete Xiantian level power technique, then the price of 200 lower grade spirit stones was literally negligible compared to its actual worth and anyone would have eagerly paid for it. However, it was an incomplete technique and could only be considered an intermediate power technique, which was a serious flaw, and no one wanted to pay 200 low-grade spirit stones for a mere intermediate power technique. However, this secret book was a waste of money for others, but for Yi Shiwen, this was a God-sent gift. He had tried before and had successfully deduced the original missing parts of Celestial Step secret book. So as long as there were enough spirit stones in his possession, he would be able to completely deduce a Xiantian level power technique even if it was damaged or incomplete. Right now, he just lacked a physical training type power technique. 350 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Shiwen took the lead and shouted. 400. As Yi Ziwen's voice faded, a loud voice came from the VIP box. 410. Yi Shiwen added 10 more and said 500. That honored guest in the VIP box added a larger number. 500 low-grade spirit stones were enough to buy even some advanced power techniques. This honored guest had a lot of money but no better place to spend. 550. Yi Shiwen clenched his teeth and said 600. The other party increased the bid yet again. Only Yi Shiwen and the honored guest were left on the scene bidding for that secret book, and as far as those warriors were concerned, the cost of 600 low-grade spirit stones to buy a damaged power technique was totally incomprehensible. Regarding those honored guests sitting in the VIP box, they would highly unlikely buy a mere intermediate-level power technique, so in the end, only Yi Shiwen and that other honored guest were bidding for the secret book. Chapter 35, Ambush, 650. Yi Shiwen said and increased the bid yet again, although this amount was already quite high for a damaged power technique. Even a complete advanced power technique would only cost not more than 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. 700. The other side was definitely not short on money and increased the bid. At this time, many people were already very excited as if watching a theatrical play. 800. Yi Shiwen clenched his teeth and said, because this was the most he could pay for this secret book. And if the other party increased the bid, then he would have no other choice but to give up, as going any far would be uneconomical for him. Bastard, who is this person daring to compete with me? Inside the box, seeing that Yi Shiwen had unexpectedly continued to compete for the secret book, a young man got suddenly furious and threw down the teacup from his hand. He often liked to set the initial price on auction items and enjoyed others competing over them. However, this time, Yi Shiwen had not just dared to compete with him but had also stolen the limelight by setting the initial bidding price for this item. I want to know who this guy really is, and then I will personally chop him into pieces. The young man said. Even though this item was an incomplete power technique, but he did not care. He had decided to buy it on a whim, but someone had dared to openly challenge him and this had made him very angry. Young master, we cannot continue to bid because before coming here, your father had informed us that our goal is the Xiantian pellet which is going to be auctioned in few days. So compared to this damaged Xiantian power technique, a Xiantian pellet is much more important for you. As long as you can become a Xiantian master, our main objective will be achieved. However, if we spend too much on other auction items, then I'm afraid we might get short on money for the Xiantian pellet. The old man accompanying this young man admonished him. Let it be, the young master does not need to lower himself to his level. We have already seen his face. He has actually dared to challenge our young master. We will make him die a dog's death and in the end that item will fall into your hands. Ha ha ha. The several guards who were assigned to protect this young man said. The young man didn't continue the bidding and Yi Shiwen finally bought the secret book for 800 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Shiwen lightly patted the secret book, but after he had obtained this secret book, he discovered that the young man in the VIP box was unexpectedly the son of Great Qingqing City Lord, Zhao Qiyan. Great Qingqing City Lord had especially come to help Zhao Qiyan in obtaining the Xiantian pellet. However, even if he knew that the other party was not someone he could easily trifle with, but he still did not flinch. Yi Shiwen was not a soft person who would passively endure if someone was to bully him, and if the other party wanted to fight then he would definitely give them a hard time. After the auction was over, he left the auction house, but only after a moment he sensed that someone was following him. Suddenly Yi Shiwen felt tight in his heart. After arriving at the Tianyuan city, he certainly hadn't offended anyone. Then the only possibility could be that son of Great Qingqing City Lord, Zhao Qiyan. Yi Shiwen stayed calm and collected and simply entered an alley. Several figures revealed and were exactly that Zhao Qiyan's bodyguards. Experts. Yi Shiwen was firmly staring at the Great Qingqing experts, then in a blink of an eye, suddenly his figure disappeared which also shocked those bodyguards. The 4 experts from Great Qingqing City, who were previously concealing their presence, finally revealed themselves. Not good, don't let that kid get away, catch him. Immediately an expert of big stature advanced violently and chased after Yi Shiwen. Although originally they were quite far enough from Yi Shiwen when he had vanished, but considering their speeds, this distance was really not too long. Only after a while, they appeared inside that alley where Yi Shiwen had disappeared to. How can he vanish like that? Damn, don't tell me he had realized that we were tracking him. A bodyguard said with frustration. No, he didn't. We four had deliberately hidden our presence, also he was 100 meters away from us, so he couldn't possibly sense us. Another bodyguard said. Not good, damn it, this kid was deliberately not hiding his presence, because he wanted us to let our guard down and reveal ourselves out in open. A tall and strong bodyguard suddenly reacted and said. The complexion of other 3 experts had slightly changed. These experts were all veterans, they were not fools and reacted quickly, although they didn't know if Yi Shiwen had intentionally concealed his presence or not, but there was still a possibility. Now, it's too late. Yi Shiwen said in an icy cold voice. He was standing on a brick wall in the alley. I never thought that the son of the great Qingqing city lord would actually do such a thing, and if the news about it spreads out then won't he turn into a laughing stock? Yi Shiwen frowned as he sensed that all of these 4 bodyguards were actually the masters of the Hotian 9th stage. Who do you think you are? You have dared to challenge our young master, so be prepared for the worst, kid. A guard sneered and said. Stop talking nonsense and kill this kid, do not let the young master wait for too long. Another guard said impatiently. Trying to kill me, with just 4 of you. Yi Shiwen took few steps, and then his figure swept down the brick wall like a storm and rushed towards the 4 guards. He pulled out his long blade and chopped down, and then appeared a violent daoqi which instantly turned into 9 blade shadows and spread into the sky. A bodyguard got surrounded by these blade shadows. How is this possible? A horrified look flashed in the eyes of that bodyguard. He was very scared in his heart because this blade attack was very frightening, and this kid had actually practiced his blade technique to the Deshang level. Although these bodyguards had already reached the Hotian 9th stage, but not even one of them had practiced a technique to the Deshang level. These masters were already at the 9th stage, but their strengths was still lacking when compared to Yi Ziwen's monstrous strength. Although Yi Shiwen had only reached the 8th stage, but thanks to him practicing multiple Xiantian power techniques and consuming monkey liquor, he was already capable of contending against masters of the peak 9th stage. Unfortunately, these guards could never be his opponents because they had not even practiced the advanced power techniques. Puchi. The bodyguard had no time to respond and was directly cut in half by Yi Ziwen's blade attack. From the eyes of a bystander, it looked as if he simply stood there and allowed Yi Shiwen to kill him. However, the fact was that he was totally surrounded by Yi Ziwen's blade attack and had no way left to escape. He could only watch himself getting beheaded. Third brother. The remaining 3 guards shouted with grief. Let's kill him together. In a blink of an eye, a warrior of the 9th stage had been killed, so it was obvious that those guards felt immense horror in their hearts, but their intention to kill had also grown thicker. If this young enemy was already so powerful, then how much terrifying he might become in the future. Immediately the 3 bodyguards stood in a formation creating a triangular envelope and pounced towards Yi Shiwen. 10 or more steps away, each of these 3 bodyguards had drawn out a long blade and chopped out their blades towards Yi Shiwen. Chapter 36, Strength of 90 Tigers. Dang! 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 The long blade danced in Yi Ziwen's hands and the Zhen Qi instantly flashed, taking the shape of a blade and chopped down against the incoming 3 long blades of those 3 guards. These 3 men alone were not a match for Yi Shiwen, but this trio had obviously practiced a joint attack method, and when they joined their forces together then the attack power would also increase greatly. Kill him! The 3 guards shouted and their blades chopped off together towards Yi Shiwen. I'm afraid you have no chance. Yi Shiwen said indifferently. Suddenly his long blade chopped out a bright light. Missing Moon Beheader, the first blade. Yi Ziwen's long blade chopped down, cutting through the blade of a bodyguard. Bang! The second blade. Power contained in this second blade was more compared to the first blade. Bang! The third blade contained such a terrible power that it cut both the bodyguard and his blade into two halves. Fourth brother. The remaining two guards shouted in grief and indignation. Second brother, quickly go, and tell young master to take revenge for us. The boss of those bodyguards said indignantly. The two bodyguards looked at Yi Shiwen with bitterness in their eyes, and the boss wanted that the second brother should escape and get some help to take revenge on Yi Shiwen for mercilessly killing the guards. The second brother did not hesitate and he instantly jumped upon the roof to escape. You want to run away? Yi Shiwen sneered. The irony was that these four guards had come to kill him, but two of them had been killed instead, and he had already made up his mind not to show them any mercy. However, losing four masters of ninth stage would be a huge loss even for the great Qingqing city lord. Yi Shiwen chopped down his blade, which flashed and dazzled in the sky, and in no time, his blade attack directly rushed towards the second bodyguard who was trying to escape. Puchi. Since the second bodyguard was already in the air, there was no room for him to dodge this blade attack. He was directly cut into two halves and fell down. Second brother. The boss was in distraught and looked at Yi Shiwen with hatred and killing intent. Little beast, you killed my brother, I will not let you live. Since the time you have come to kill me, I have already decided to punish you all, because even if I don't have any enmity with you, but you still chased me without any cause, for this sin heavens may forgive you, but I won't. Yi Shiwen sneered and rushed towards the bodyguard boss. Bodyguard boss had not thought that it would become like this, and there was a crazy look in his eyes, and he madly made an attack on Yi Shiwen. The two figures fiercely clashed against each other. Puchi. After a few rounds, Yi Ziwen's backhand blade beheaded the bodyguard boss. Yi Shiwen seized more than 2,000 low-grade spirit stones from the body of the four bodyguards. These stones were enough to make up for the loss that he had to face during the bidding competition with Zhao Qiyan, and now his stock of low-grade spirit stones also went up to 6,000. Yi Shiwen went back to the inn, and immediately began to cultivate to be fully prepared for the major auction which was going to begin in 3 days. Yi Shiwen immediately began to cultivate tyrant body technique according to the description given in the secret book. The technique focused on training the mortal flesh and body which would eventually turn the Bodhi's constitution to that of an evil god's. It was believed that this technique had been practiced since ancient times and was also considered as one of the most tough-to-practice techniques. However, since the secret book was damaged, so only the first layer could be practiced. Although there was only one layer intact, but when the power was taken into consideration, then it was not at all inferior to other intermediate-level power techniques. Tyrant body technique, as the name suggested, was so overbearing and powerful that after practicing it, Yi Shiwen would not be able to practice any other body training techniques, and he also won't need to. The reason why this technique was put out for auction by Tianyin Auction House was that it only had the first layer intact, and regardless of being the great tyrant body technique, how much one could expect from only the first layer. Since it only had one layer intact, it was pretty good for an average warrior who could practice it as an intermediate power technique. Also for the giant auction houses like Tianyin Auction House, this incomplete technique was a bit useless as they possessed many other body training techniques. But for Yi Shiwen, it was the most suitable power technique. Even if it had only the first layer intact, but it was actually comparable to intermediate level techniques. For others, tyrant body technique was nothing more than a damage technique which was comparable to only the mere intermediate level techniques, but Yi Shiwen was capable of deducing the missing original parts of this technique in the special space. As long as he possessed enough spirit stones, practicing this technique to its peak level would not be a problem for him. With the continuous combustion of spirit stones, Yi Shiwen entered the special space and started to practice tyrant body technique, and suddenly all of its secrets started to flow into his mind. He felt as if his body was being torn apart and restructuring, tearing and recombining, his flesh was being torn off and the cells were restructuring themselves according to a mysterious structure. His face turned blue with pain and cold sweat was dripping off his forehead because practicing tyrant body technique was way more painful than he had imagined. Chapter 37, Competition in the Auction House. As the days passed, more and more warriors continued to arrive at the Tianyuan city. In addition to the great Qingqing city lord, 2 other big shots also arrived in the last 2 days. They were the lords of Bloody Hand School and Black Magic Valley. Both of them were the great experts of Xiantian realm and held quite an illustrious reputation in the neighboring schools. They had come for the sake of the outstanding disciples from their respective schools, and were going to request the city lord palace for a Xiantian pellet. However, when they came to know that the Xiantian pellets were going to be auctioned, they decided to compete for the pellets at the Tianyin auction house. Early in the morning, Yi Shiwen went to the Tianyin auction house where the major auction of Xiantian pellets was going to take place. Compared to a few days ago, the auction house was completely packed with people this time. An overwhelming number of warriors had gathered outside the auction house, and this situation was quite troublesome for the guards. However, a scene like this was not uncommon whenever a major item was auctioned at the Tianyuan auction house. Those who caused trouble were directly thrown out of the Tianyin auction house and were also banned from attending the auction. However, this situation was not a problem for Yi Shiwen. He directly used the celestial step and shuttled inside the auction house. He paid the required amount of spirit stones and received his seating pass. Yi Shiwen just walked into the commoner's passage and caught a sudden glimpse of a large group of honored guests walking through the VIP passage. This group was being led by a middle-aged man, clad in blood-red Chinese robe, and he also carried a bloody aura around him. The smell of blood had spread everywhere inside the auction hall, and his hands were big and scarlet-colored. Behind him followed a young man wearing blood-stained clothes. He had a pale complexion as if recovering from some serious illness, and there was a cold and gloomy look in his eyes. His hands were also scarlet-colored like the middle-aged man. Everyone quickly hide, these are the people from Bloody Hand School. And its lord in Yuan has personally brought his brigade. Gee, this auction of the Xiantian pellets has attracted many big shots. That guy who is following in Yuan is actually his favorite disciple in Yunpeng. And Yuan has personally come to buy a Xiantian pellet for him. Yes, he's right, look at his scarlet hands. This blood hand technique requires the person to train his hands to bear and control a considerable amount of heat. And I have also heard that this martial art requires the blood of the living. No one knows how many talented people have been massacred by him. Hush, hush, do you want to die? Don't you know those are all depraved warriors? The people in the crowd were talking in whispers. Just now, I saw that the Lord of the Black Magic Valley has also arrived. Exactly. This time, all these influential experts are going to compete for Xiantian pellets. Yi Shiwen did not have to wait for too long and quickly found his seat. He closed his eyes waiting for the auction to start. After about half an hour, the auction finally started. We welcome all of you all to participate in this auction. The auctioneer this time was the same white-robed old man from the last time. We all know why everybody has come to attend today's auction. So without wasting any time on useless talks, let us start today's auction. Compared to the last time, the quality of the auction items was very high this time. This double-edged sword, named by Shui, is made of 1,000-years-old cold iron. Our auction house has brought for you this outstanding work of a great master, and its starting price is 2,000 low-grade spirit stones. In front of the old man, a blue-colored double-edged sword was lying quietly on top of a platinum tray. The sword blade was cold as ice, causing the surrounding air to condense. It was evident that this ice-cold sword was a magic weapon. Compared to the previous auction items, the quality had significantly improved this time. However, Yi Shiwen was not interested in swords. What he had practiced was a blade technique for which he used a long blade. And there was a great difference between a blade and a sword, so no matter how good this sword actually was, it was of no use to him. Even if he was not interested, but there were a lot of people who were very much interested, and this time, the warriors who had come to attend this auction were quite rich. 2,300. 2,500. 3,000. The auction lasted for 2 minutes and Bai Shue's sword was finally sold at the price of 4,500 low-grade spirit stones. Yi Shiwen was speechless at the huge amount that the experts were willing to pay for this sword. One after the other, the Tianyin auction house continued to auction some nice weapons and treasure items. But none of these auction items could attract Yi Ziwen's attention, and so he did not compete for them. Of course, the most important reason was that these items were very expensive and he could not afford them. He was waiting for something which could interest him and was also affordable. Gradually the honored guests seated in the VIP box also began to compete. Compared to the people sitting in the common area, these guests, undoubtedly, possessed an extraordinary aura and the prices they were offering were also off the charts. But then an auction item suddenly attracted Yi Ziwen's attention. Next we want to auction an inner armor. This armor stems from the hands of a great expert. It is woven out of golden cicada silk, and swords or spears find it hard to pierce it. Also with this inner armor, I guarantee the personal safety to anyone who wears it. The white-robed old man said with a smile. Then he uncovered the red cloth and everyone saw a snow-white inner armor quietly lying on top of the tray. The bidding for this armor will start at 4,000. The white-robed old man said. The thing was that these defense-type items were comparatively more expensive than the offense-type weapons. Generally weapons were not so expensive, but since this inner armor guaranteed the safety of life, so it was comparatively more expensive. 5,500. Yi Shiwen shouted and took the lead. He was very much interested in this body armor, although he knew that he probably won't be able to get his hands on it. After all, he possessed limited financial resources, but he still wanted to give it a try. 8,000. As soon as Yi Ziwen's voice faded, an arrogant young voice shouted immediately. Arrogance was clearly visible in the voice that had increased the bidding price instantly by 2,500. Yi Shiwen frowned, but what could he do, as this kind of insane auctioning was quite normal at the Tianyin auction house. He looked towards the auction stage where the white-robed old man was smiling. Yi Shiwen finally recognized this voice which actually belonged to the arrogant son of great Qingqing city lord, Zhao Qiyan. 9,000. Another honored guest seated in the VIP box shouted and increased the bid. Looking at the position of his seat, he clearly belonged to the Black Magic Valley. 10,000. Zhao Qiyan spoke again in a triumphant tone. 12,000. The young master of the Black Magic Valley said, who also had an arrogant appearance. 15,000. Zhao Qiyan spoke again as if he did not care about money at all. At last, the young master of the Black Magic Valley had to concede and Zhao Qiyan bought the inner armor. Dash. Chapter 38, Climax. Next we want to auction the 2 Xiantian pellets for which everybody has come here. I assume everyone present here knows the importance and use of a Xiantian pellet. When someone swallows a Xiantian pellet, then his chances of successfully breaking through to the Xiantian realm will be increased by 50%. The starting price for 1 Xiantian pellet will be 20,000 low-grade spirit stones. The white-robed old man said. At last, the auction of Xiantian pellet began. 40,000. Zhao Qiyan was the first to bid once again. He wanted to quell everyone in one swoop. 45,000. At this time a voice broke in and suddenly blew everyone's enthusiasm. 50,000. 53,000. Suddenly the honored guests seated in the VIP box started to bid one after the other. Xiantian pellet was the main goal of these Xiantian level masters, so how could they miss this opportunity? At this time, besides the honored guests seated in the VIP box, other people, sitting in the common area, were basically reduced to mere spectators. Such a high price, they were not even qualified to get involved. 70,000. Zhao Qiyan again said in a triumphant voice. By this time, many people had already stopped bidding, seeing the high price set by Zhao Qiyan. Only the major powers were still competing. 85,000. Representing the Bloody Hand School, this time, An Yunpeng finally spoke. He was the first person other than Zhao Qiyan who had directly increased the bid by 10,000 in one statement. 150,000. Our city guard government is willing to pay 150,000 low-grade spirit stones, so I hope you will give us face. This time, a middle-aged man's voice spread out. He was actually the head of city guard government. Because the city lord palace and city guard government were never on good terms with each other, no one had expected that city guard government would actually come to participate in the auction of Xiantian pellets. But they were willing to pay a huge amount of 150,000 low-grade spirit stones, which was not a small sum. All the forces were silent for a moment and did not continue to increase the bid. They did not fear the city guard government but the Great Yu royal government which backed the city guard government in the Tianyuan city. These forces were rampant in the nearby regions of the Qingfeng mountain and the government officials could not do anything to stop them. But they knew very well that it was because Qingfeng mountain and nearby regions were located at the border regions of the Great Yu state, and were far away from the central regions. Since no one was here to keep an eye on them, they could run amok without caring about anyone or anything. But city guard government was here on behalf of the Great Yu royal government. Even killing the Tianyuan city lord was not a big deal to them, but if they killed the city guard then they will have to face the thundering fury of the Great Yu royal government. It was widely known that Great Yu royal government used to hide its shortcomings by indiscriminately massacring all of the people who posed threat to them or disrespected them. Moreover, the government had formed a conquering army specifically to deal with these rogue schools, excluding the Yi Yuan school and a few other huge forces which did not fear the Great Yu royal government. So it was quite obvious why no one wanted to disrespect the city guard government. City guard government awed the audience by buying the first Xiantian pellet for 150,000 low-grade spirit stones. After the first Xiantian pellet was sold, the second one attracted more competition from countless people. But how could anyone compete against the financial resources of Great Qingqing City Lord, Black Magic Valley and the most violent Bloody Hand School? The other bidders got eliminated almost immediately when the bidding amount crossed 100,000 low-grade spirit stones. 130,000. This time, the young master of the Black Magic Valley spoke and increased the bid. I hope you will give us face and in the future, we will also give you face. You're idiot, do you think your face is made of gold? The young master of Great Qingqing City said with disdain. As for Tianyuan City Guard government, he had some fear, but he didn't fear the Black Magic Valley at all. 150,000. Zhao Qiyan said in a victorious manner. Zhao Qiyan, so you plan to compete with me? The young master of the Black Magic Valley said. Wen Qingxing was a handsome young man, but this time, his handsome face was covered with haze and was radiating a dense gloomy feeling. So what? Zhao Qiyan did not care. 160,000. A sudden voice spread out from the reserved box of Bloody Hand School. The little master in Yunpeng gave out an evil smile while supporting his chin on his bloody hands and said, I'm sorry you too, but I am also interested in a Xiantian pellet. Seeing the price for the second Xiantian pellet had surpassed the first one, Yi Shuwen felt that something was strange. The young masters of these three forces were continuously increasing the bidding price, but the elders were very tolerant and said nothing, as if they did not even exist. But Yi Shuwen could clearly sense that these three forces had terrible aura surrounding them, which was definitely not similar to his father's aura. Although Yi Kongming was also a Xiantian master, but Yi Shuwen had never felt such an unfathomable aura from his father. 180,000. Wen Qingxing said in deep voice. 200,000. Zhao Qiyan immediately said as if he simply did not care about money, but it really was true to say that when the money was taken into consideration then Great Qingqing City Lord was the richest among the bidders. His clan received 80% of the city taxes, and owned more than 1/3 of the businesses in the Qingqing city. And it was impossible for anyone to compete against the Qingqing City Lord when money was involved. Sure enough, as Yi Shuwen had expected, when Qingxing and An Yunpeng had abandoned the competition. Zhao Qian had finally won and received a small red bag containing the last Xiantian pellet. This Xiantian pellet auction finally came to a close. But Yi Shiwen knew that the real play had only just begun and this competition had not yet ended. There were only a few people left at the auction house. The city guard government had hastily evacuated while being escorted by a large number of soldiers. And after buying the second Xiantian pellet, Great Qingqing City Lord also left quietly. Yi Shiwen also quietly got up and went out of the auction house, and not far from the auction house, he saw the Great Qingqing City people hastily walking away to leave the city as soon as possible. However, Bloody Hand Door and Black Magic Valley Lords, with their own teams, were also following from behind. Yi Shiwen now understood very well that the earlier auction was just a prelude, and the real climax was going to begin only now. Obviously, everyone was aware of this truth, but no one wanted to be a part of a deadly battle. Tianyuan City Guard government was heavily protected and security naturally was not a problem for them, but for the Great Qingqing City Lord and his people, things were going to take a bad turn. Chapter 39, Sneak Attack. Yi Shiwen started following them closely at a moderate pace while hiding his presence at the same time. Since he had already practiced Celestial Step to a very profound level, keeping up with these people was not at all difficult for him. Yi Shiwen, while following those people, arrived at a remote mountain which was located far away from Tianyuan City. Great Qingqing City Lord and Zhao Qian were escaping along with a big crowd of experts. This group consisted of a total of approximately 50 people. They were running very fast and trying their best to escape this perilous situation. Not far behind, Qingqing City Group was being pursued by the experts from Black Magic Valley, led by their Lord Wenbin. He looked like an ordinary middle-aged man, but his face was full of malicious look. "Be careful, someone is following us." Great Qingqing City Lord seemed to have sensed the Black Magic Valley Group. "Ha ha ha, it is indeed the Great Qingqing City Lord." Black Magic Valley's Lord Wenbin laughed and said. His voice was hoarse, but when he gave out a loud laugh, it seemed to have an extremely penetrating force which was effective enough to break the soul of an ordinary person. After discovering his targets so close, Black Magic Valley Lord did not wait for too long. He immediately led his group to kill and plunder. "So it's you, old Wenbin." Great Qingqing City Lord, Zhao Yan, narrowed his eyes and said while a strong qi spread in the sky. "Hello, City Lord Zhao. I must say that you are an extraordinary personality of this generation, and it is quite admirable that you have single-handedly established such a strong foothold in the Great Qingqing City. That's why, I do not want to bully you, just surrender the Xiantian pellet and I will leave immediately. Also in the future, our Black Magic Valley will always give you face." Wenbin smiled and said in a hoarse voice. "You want to declare war on our Qingqing City, because that would mean declaring war on Great Yu royal government which is also working secretly in our city. Are you not afraid of the Great Yu royal government's conquering army?" Zhao Yan said lightly. "Don't you try to fool me. You say I am declaring war on Great Yu royal government? I am not a foolishly daring person. How can I possibly imagine going against Great Yu royal government? Besides, you think I do not know that you and Qingqing City Guard government are mutually exclusive. In fact, they are looking forward to your early demise, and you think they will come to help you, huh?" Wenbin sneered repeatedly and exposed Zhao Yan's situation. "Withdraw. You all have to protect my son at any cost and help him escape." Zhao Yan suddenly shouted and ordered his subordinates. He knew very well that right now, his only weak point was his son Zhao Qian's presence in this dangerous situation. He himself was a Xiantian master and could handle any kind of situation even if he was alone. However, if Zhao Qian was present in the vicinity, then he wouldn't be able to fight freely and would worry about his son's safety all the time. "You want to run? Dream on." Wenbin sneered repeatedly and roared, "Kill them." With Wenbin's loud and heart-shaking roar, the experts of the Black Magic Valley immediately rushed towards the large crowd of Qingqing City experts. It was like the two mighty currents had crashed into each other mercilessly. Followed by Zhao Yan and Wen Bin, the two crowds of powerful experts clashed and started fighting maliciously. Everyone was filled with rage and killing intent, and an unbearable aura had spread all over place. All of these experts were very vicious and ferocious. Wen Bin and Zhao Yan, these two Xiantian-level great experts, also severely clashed against each other, causing a shock wave which shook the entire area. Zhao Yan made a long spear and a majestic qi spread out throughout his body. He looked like a peerless warrior, who rushed through the crowd of enemies and even swept away many Black Magic Valley disciples. None of those disciples could block his attacks. Wen Bin took out a long sword and attacked the necks of his enemies, killing them one by one in single stroke. He was like a poisonous snake which had left its hole and was advancing in the direction of Zhao Yan to bite his neck. Boom! Zhao Yan's long spear fiercely clashed with the sword of Wen Bin. Suddenly, their terrible qi burst out from their bodies. The blue-colored Jin qi and blood-red Jin qi fiercely clashed, causing an air explosion, and a powerful shock wave spread wide and far. Both of them were Xiantian-level masters. Once they began to fight, their terrible Jin qi of the Xiantian realm brandished recklessly, producing many air explosions in the surrounding atmosphere. Zhao Yan was obviously stronger than the Wen Bin, and he went on attacking like a mad dragon. Dang! 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 Metal clashing sounds spread everywhere, but in this kind of life and death struggle, none of them dared to be careless. However, the Black Magic Valley Lord Wen Bin Ming was less strong compared to Zhao Yan. And it seemed that he would lose very soon at the hands of Zhao Yan. Haven't the friends from the Bloody Hand School come out yet? We have already joined forces to kill these great Qingqing city experts. Regarding Xiantian Pellet, we will slowly negotiate later. Black Magic Valley Lord Wen Bin suddenly said. Ha ha ha, well, let's join forces to defeat Zhao Yan. Bloody Hand School Lord and Yuan suddenly appeared and said while laughing loudly. At this time, Zhao Yan's complexion began to change. He could easily deal with Wen Bin, but if An Yuan joined forces with Wen Bin, then he would definitely be in trouble. And Yuan immediately joined hands with Wen Bin to fight against Zhao Yan. Being attacked by the two Xiantian masters at once was very dangerous for Zhao Yan, as he was only one man against the two. Yi Shiwen did not continue to look at this scene, and instead, he decided to pursue Zhao Qiyan. He immediately rushed towards the direction in which Zhao Qiyan had escaped with his guards. After crossing the deep ravine, one would reach a dense mountain forest where Zhao Qiyan had escaped with his guards. Young master, don't go any further, it's dangerous. Suddenly, an experienced guard alarmed Zhao Qiyan. There was a silence spread in this mountain forest, and this situation was very abnormal. Quick, we will make a detour. As long as we can safely return to the Qingqing city, I will personally lead a troop of experts to kill these bastards of the Black Magic Valley. Zhao Qiyan said in a cold voice. Qingqing city's young master, surrender the Xiantian pellet and I'll let you go. A slightly cold laughter came from the hillside. Zhao Qiyan looked and saw that the owner of this voice was unexpectedly the young master of Bloody Hand School, An Yunpeng. An Yunpeng. You Bloody Hand School people are quite ambitious. You actually dared to threaten me, the young master of Great Qingqing City. Zhao Qiyan shouted with anger. Zhao Qiyan, you really think too highly of yourself. Do you think your father will come to save you now? He is now unable to defend himself. Take out the Xiantian pellet, otherwise, don't blame me for being brutal. And Yunpeng sneered. Guards, listen up, kill all of these Bloody Hand School bastards. Arrogant Zhao Qiyan suddenly got extremely mad at An Yunpeng and ordered his guards to attack. Under the orders of both young masters, experts from both sides started fighting to kill each other. Although compared to the subordinates of Zhao Yan and Wen Bin, the subordinates of An Yuan were way more brutal and ferocious, despite being fewer in numbers. A terrifying collision occurred, causing the blood to spill out from the bodies of several people, then fell on the ground. Zhao Qiyan pulled out his spear and rushed forward to kill An Yunpeng. The forces of both sides were elite among the elites. All of them were the masters of the peak Hotian 9th stage and none of them were more than 30 years old. This indicated that they could easily reach the Xiantian level in near future. And Yunpeng's pair of bloody hands struck and instantly, a bloody qi filled the entire battlefield. The blood of those experts who had died in the battle allowed his bloody hand technique to become even more powerful. This technique was obviously so powerful that it had totally thwarted the plan of Zhao Qian to attack in numbers. Almost instantaneously, Zhao Qian had been pushed down by an Yunpeng. Although Zhao Qian's guards had numerical advantage, they had also been slaughtered by the disciples of Bloody Hand's school. Initially, I had planned to release all the 4 chapters at once, but I didn't want you guys to wait for too long. So I released them as and when I had finished translating and editing them. Chapter 40, Benefits of being the third party at a dispute, bang. And Yunpeng did not wait for Zhao Qian to recover. He immediately hit Zhao Qian's chest using his palm, which went right through his chest, creating a big hole. The blood was directly sucked out of his body and his lifeless body fell on the ground. It looked as if the life had directly been sucked out of his body along with the blood. Bloody hand technique was quite vicious. And Yunpeng took out the storage ring from Zhao Qian's finger. His face was filled with ecstasy after he confirmed that the Xiantian pellet was inside the ring. For people like him, the biggest desire had always been to enter into the Xiantian realm. However, if he tried to break through to the Xiantian realm without using a Xiantian pellet and failed, then the penalty would be quite painful. Because once someone failed to break into the Xiantian realm, then that would lead to a total loss of cultivation and they might die as the worst-case scenario. But using a pellet was quite beneficial, because even if the person failed to break through to the Xiantian realm and didn't die of the rebound, then he would not lose anything. There were a lot of benefits of becoming a Xiantian master. Now, Yi Shiwen jumped, and while using the celestial step, he swiftly and suddenly rushed towards an Yunpeng. Young master, watch out! The disciples of the Bloody Hand School suddenly saw Yi Shiwen and exclaimed. Too late! Yi Shiwen shouted. A long blade flashed brightly in his hand and obscured the eyes of an Yunpeng. Puchi! And Yunpeng was still enjoying this long-awaited ecstatic moment of his life, and he simply didn't get a chance to dodge Yi Zaiwen's blade attack, which was as fast as the lightning. And Yunpeng couldn't react and was directly cut in half. Young master! You actually killed our young master, die you bastard! Although these disciples of the Bloody Hand School had killed the guards of Zhao Qian, but this was all thanks to the taboo technique they had practiced. The most powerful disciple among them was only a warrior of the Hotian 8th stage. So how could they possibly be Yi Zaiwen's opponents? Yi Zaiwen's long blade beheaded all of them. The praying mantis had caught the cicada. After killing all the disciples of the Bloody Hand School, Yi Shiwen did not dare to stay for long. There was a risk that the 3 Xiantian masters might leave the other side of the battlefield and come here. He needed to escape before they arrived. Yi Shiwen seized the 2 storage rings which belonged to the 2 young masters. He did not stay there for too long and immediately left. 10 minutes later, the great Qingqing city lord arrived and saw the dead body of his only son. He saw that blood had been sucked out of his son's body and suddenly, he started to roar in grief. Bloody Hand School! You dared to kill my son. Today, I vow to obliterate each and every one of you. After taking a detour, Yi Shiwen finally came back to the Tianyuan city. By this time, only half of the warriors had still remained in the city and rest of them had already left. They had come for the Xiantian pellets, but now, both the pellets had already been bought, so there was no reason for them to stay in the city. Yi Shiwen quietly went inside the inn. After entering his room, he took a look inside the 2 storage rings and immediately felt a burst of ecstasy. These 2 young masters were quite rich. They indeed were the successors of 2 major powers. There were hundreds of thousands of low-grade spirit stones inside those 2 storage rings. For Yi Shiwen, This amount was definitely an astronomical figure. Even for the core disciples, having 10,000 low-grade spirit stones was already enough to call them rich. Possessing an amount of 100,000 low-grade spirit stones was already a dream, even for the richest core disciples. However, for heirs like Zhao Qian and An Yunpeng, possessing such an amount was understandable. His stock of low-grade spirit stones had soared overnight. One could say that for a long period of time, he won't need to find spirit stones for cultivating inside the special space. In addition to these spirit stones, there were also some martial arts techniques present inside the rings, but Yi Shiwen felt that these techniques were not suitable for him. In addition to that, there were a lot of medicinal pills and other stuffs present inside the rings. All of a sudden, he had become quite rich. Of course, that white armor was also present inside the storage ring which Zhao Qian had bought at the auction house earlier. Unfortunately, he did not get a chance to wear it and it had finally fallen into the hands of Yi Shiwen. Of course, the most important harvest was the Xiantian pellet. Reaching the Xiantian realm was the biggest threshold for an expert. Many warriors would get stuck at the Hotian 9th stage and would never be able to break past this threshold. But now, with the help of Xiantian pellet, Yi Shiwen was confident that he could easily enter the Xiantian realm. Although now was not the time for him to enter into the Xiantian realm. After he had finished checking the inventory, he did not return to Yi Yuan school. He directly began closed-door training. Although other masters needed to find a proper remote place to start the closed-door training, but he possessed the special space so he didn't need to care about finding a place for closed-door training. The core disciples competition was only a month away. Initially, this competition was going to start after 3 months. However, this time, the Zhang family was also participating in the core disciples competition, which was going to take place in the Blood Yuan territory. Since Blood Yuan territory was going to open after a month, so the core disciples competition had also been preponed by 2 months. Yi Shiwen wanted to outshine others in this core disciples competition. So, right now, he just wanted to concentrate on cultivating and practicing the newly obtained power techniques. With the amount of 100,000 low-grade spirit stones in his possession, now he could practice freely without worrying about the consumption of spirit stones. He entered the special space and the combustion of spirit stones began. The generated Lingqi quickly entered inside his body. His cultivation started to increase rapidly and various insights about the power techniques started to enter into his mind very rapidly. The amount of information was so large that it would be impossible even for a genius to comprehend all of it. In a blink of an eye, a month had passed. Yi Shiwen was moving swiftly inside the special space. His figure was like that of an immortal himself. His movements were so fast that sometimes, it seemed as if he had disappeared. Yi Shiwen stopped with a look of surprise on his face. My hunches were right. This celestial step really has subsequent moves. This month, his cultivation was nothing like it was a month ago. With rapid advances, his cultivation had directly reached the peak of Hotian 8th stage. There was only a thin layer after which, he could break through to the Hotian 9th stage. Similarly, his missing moon beheader had also improved greatly. Now, he could continuously strike 7 blades and the total power of his blade attack had also increased by 5 times. His tyrant body technique had reached the Xiaocheng realm and his strength had directly reached the strength of 99 tigers. This was the peak of strength that a master of the Hotian realm could achieve. Chapter 41, The Besieged Disciple. The most important thing was that this special space was capable of deducing the missing original parts of the power techniques. When he had first obtained Celestial Step, it contained only the first layer. Since then, he had been practicing Celestial Step and had become very skilled in it. During this month, he had deduced the second layer of Celestial Step, however, he had just barely scratched the surface of this second layer. He had just taken a short peek at the next realm and the amount of information it contained was so vast that he could not even proceed a single step. However, just from scratching the surface, his understanding of the Celestial Step had improved by leaps and bounds. Now, His current speed had increased by 2 times. While using Celestial Step, whenever he moved, he would split into 2 identical figures, although only for a moment, then it would disappear. But if he successfully practiced the information that he learned from peeking into the next realm, then this figure could be maintained for a longer duration. After a month of insane practice, now, Yi Shiwen could easily beat any master of the Hotian 9th stage. The Zhen Qi inside his body had become far more vigorous than the masters of the Hotian 9th stage. Whenever his long blade chopped down, it would produce blade shadows which together would look like a large blade screen, and each of these blade shadows could easily chop down the air into fragments, while emitting a burst of crackling explosive sounds. After getting stronger, he intended to return to Yi Yuan School to participate in the Core Disciple competition. This time's Core Disciple competition was very important, because by participating in it, there was a possibility that he might become one of the direct disciples of Yi Yuan School's ancestor. Yi Shiwen left the inn and heard from some people that the city was still in uproar thanks to the major auction of Xiantian pellets, which took place almost a month ago. After practicing the Xiantian pellets, the City Lord Palace had produced 2 Xiantian-level experts, and including the City Lord himself, now there were 3 Xiantian experts belonging to City Lord Palace. This might have become a major disadvantage for the City Guard government, but fortunately, they had also bought a Xiantian pellet and had trained a Xiantian expert of their own. Like this, the balance of power was still intact. But Yi Shiwen knew that if there were no external interventions, then one day, the Tianyuan city will eventually fall into the hands of the City Lord. But, the good news was that Yi Shiwen and Tianyuan City Lord Palace had no enmity. On the contrary, he had helped a lot during the escort mission. So, he was on good terms with the City Lord Palace. Yi Shiwen soon left the Tianyuan city and headed in the direction of Yi Yuan School. Since his strength had improved several times, now, his speed had also increased dramatically. He was so fast that it seemed as if he was literally flying towards the Yi Yuan School. Yi Shiwen was dashing through a mountain forest when he suddenly heard the sound of intense fighting. Yi Shiwen rushed all the way inside the forest and saw that a fierce Shen Qi was fluctuating violently, while creating a loud bustling sound. He saw more than a dozen sturdy-looking warriors, clad in uniforms, who were being led by a noble-looking youth dressed up in splendid Chinese clothes, and all of them were together attacking a black-clothed woman. Yi Shiwen took a good look at this black-clothed woman and was totally dumbstruck. She was a beautiful girl who had the appearance of 17-year-old. She had a pair of black curved eyebrows which complemented her beautiful face and snow-white skin which seemed to be made up of jade, a pair of beautiful bright eyes like the ocean itself which could drown anyone into its depths. She was divinely beautiful, like a celestial beauty that had descended into the mortal world, a truly unattainable masterpiece. Yi Shiwen had never seen a beauty like her before, even though he possessed the memories from 2 different worlds. These 10 or so sturdy warriors were all at the peak of Hotian 9th stage, but they didn't seem like the other warriors he had seen before in the Tianyuan city. They were all wearing uniforms and gave the impression of outstanding professionals. The young lord and the black-clothed woman were constantly fighting, and whenever they clashed against each other their fierce Shen Qi would collide and spread in all directions. Unexpectedly, they were both the masters of Xiantian realm. Yi Shiwen immediately concealed his presence and hid behind a tree. The young lord was using all of his strength and his attacks were causing air explosions one after the other. However, the techniques used by the black-clothed woman were giving a familiar feeling to Yi Shiwen. Luo Tian, you really are a brave guy. You not only poisoned my food, but you also conspired against me. Are you not afraid of getting punished by our Yi Yuan school? The black-clothed woman said in a sharp voice. Yi Yuan school. Yi Shiwen was suddenly shocked. So this black-clothed woman was actually a disciple of Yi Yuan school, but he had never seen her before. Not to mention, it was nearly impossible for the disciples to break through to the Xiantian realm at the Yi Yuan school. Then the only possibility could be that she was a Yi Yuan school's disciple of the main sect. Ha ha ha. The young Lord Luo Tian laughed and said, "You are under my poison, so it is absolutely impossible to escape from my hands. With you out of the picture, my elder sister will be able to receive ancestors' full attention. Then our Luo clan will have a meteoric rise." "You're delusional." The black-clothed woman clenched her teeth and her long sword chopped down. The sword light produced from the long sword instantly enveloped the horizon, which caused a massive air explosion, reducing everything in the vicinity into dust. Several warriors, who were in the range of this attack, were killed in an instant. Even if a Xiantian master was poisoned, his strength would still be far more than the masters at the peak of Hotian 9th stage. "Hua Menghan, stop resisting." Luo Tian laughed loudly and rushed forward with a long blade in his hand from which the daoqi was spreading wantonly. Boom! 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 These two Xiantian masters continued to fight a terrible battle. "Young lord, before you kill this girl, allow us brothers to have some fun with her. Haha, an arrogant woman from Yi Yuan school, none of us have ever enjoyed such a superb little beauty." A warrior, Yin Shao, said with an obscene look on his face. "Ha ha ha, when my Luo clan has a meteoric rise, then you all will get any woman you desire." Luo Tian said with a loud laugh. "Die." Hua Menghan clenched her teeth. If only she was not poisoned, then these people were nothing more than ants in front of her strength. Hua Menghan's long sword struck and a terrible sword key shined brightly and rushed towards that obscene warrior like a lightning and instantaneously split him into two halves. That obscene warrior did not even have a chance to scream and was directly split into two halves. Luo Tian, without caring about the warrior, just laughed and said, "Fight if you want to, but the poison spreads even faster whenever you use your Jin Qi." Hua Menghan's pure white skin had begun to glow with a faint blue color and she didn't look in good condition. She bit her lips and shouted, "Even if I die, I will not let your conspiracy to succeed." Her voice spread out in all directions and her long sword made a strike. The sword key spread out with terrifying force and rushed towards the young lord. She had squeezed all of her remaining power in this final attack. Luo Tian also had no other choice but to go all out and he chopped his long blade to welcome this sword attack. Boom! 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 This collision had set even the air on fire. Phew! A shrill piercing sound suddenly came out of nowhere, as if coming from the void itself. A sword flashed and directly stabbed into the chest of Luo Tian. Ah! Luo Tian screamed and collapsed on the ground. His face had suddenly turned pale and blood was gushing out of the stab wound non-stop. At this time, on the other side, Hua Menghan's situation was also getting worse. Her snow-white skin had completely turned blue, which was quite scary to look at. Chapter 42, Treatment, Kill her. Luo Tian said in a weak voice. Hua Menghan's long sword had pierced through his heart, severing several arteries, and he had no strength left to shout. If he did not get the treatment sooner, then he would surely die. Luo Tian suddenly heard a burst of sharp piercing sound. 9 large blade shadows appeared and obscured the entire sky with white dazzling light. Bang! 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 Almost instantaneously, most of those warriors of the peak Hotian 9th stage had been slaughtered. Luo Tian had not expected such a massive attack from Hua Menghan. He immediately realized that there was someone else behind this attack. Who dares to make a sneak attack on my subordinates? Luo Tian said angrily. It's me. Yi Shiwen strode out from behind a tree carrying a long blade in his hand. Boy, who are you? Don't you know how powerful our Luo family is? You are courting death. Luo Tian said in a grim voice. It's you people who are courting death, not me. You have attacked a disciple from my Yi Yuan school, and it seems that you are really tired of living. Yi Shiwen said in a cold voice. When Hua Menghan came to know that he was actually a disciple of Yi Yuan school, she heaved a sigh of relief. You are going to die. A petty expert like you, who has not even reached the Xiantian realm, dares to meddle with our Luo family. Just you wait and see how I massacre your entire family. Luo Tian clamored, however, it's not too late yet. Kill Hua Menghan for me and I'll let you off. Suddenly, Yi Zaiwen's eyes flashed with killing intent because Luo Tian had actually dared to threaten his family. In this world, he cared the most about his family and he would do anything for their safety. When he had come to this world, his family had given him warmth and the reason to persevere. His family had also encouraged him to break through the shackles of weakness and explore this big bad world with courage. You think you can threaten my family? Yi Shiwen shouted. His blade flashed and dazzled the sky with brilliant white light, and his long blade instantly chopped down. You dare! Before Luo Tian could finish the sentence, his head had already been severed from his body. He would never have thought that, one day, he would actually die at the hands of a kid who was not even a master of the Xiantian realm. After witnessing the brutal death of their young lord, immediately, all of the remaining warriors had started to escape one after another while shouting loudly. Do not let them escape. Hua Menghan reminded Yi Shiwen. There was no need to remind him because he had already planned to eradicate all of them. He did not want any future troubles, so cutting the root itself was his best option. Although, all of the remaining warriors were at the peak of Hotian 9th stage, but unfortunately, they had met a killing god like Yi Shiwen. Except for the Xiantian masters, he could easily defeat anyone. After seeing that Yi Shiwen had successfully beheaded all of the warriors, Hua Menghan heaved a sigh of relief and fainted. Yi Shiwen hastily searched for a storage ring on Luo Tian's body. He found a storage ring, but he didn't examine it now, because at present, Hua Menghan's safety was his top priority. He ran up to her and looked at her condition. She had been thoroughly poisoned and her condition looked very serious, but Yi Shiwen could not just sit idly and do nothing. After all, they both belonged to the same school, and on top of that, she was a girl. He held her in his arms and rushed through the forest. After a while, he found a cave and stopped there. Although, bringing her back to the Yi Yuan school was the best way to save her, but looking at her condition, he knew very well that she didn't have much time left and needed immediate treatment. There was a dim light inside the cave. Yi Shiwen made her to sit on the ground and he affixed his palms on her back and began to send his own Jin Qi into her body. His Jin Qi probed inside her body and he came to know that her body was already a mess. This poison was endlessly suppressing her Jin Qi, which was the reason why she had fallen unconscious. However, this poison was quite amazing because it was capable of suppressing the Jin Qi of a Xiantian level master. Yi Zaiwen's Jin Qi was probing her body and finally encountered the poison. But, with a buzzing sound, his Jin Qi was directly melted by the poison. Yi Shiwen was totally shocked. Just what kind of poison was this? It could even corrode the Jin Qi. It was a good thing that Hua Menghan was a Xiantian master, otherwise, it was practically impossible for Hotian realm warriors to persist against this poison for such a long time. However, right now, he didn't have time to think about all that. He just continued to supply his Jin Qi to help her in suppressing the poison in her body. The bright jade power also had a strong inhibitory effect on the poison. However, he was only a master of the Hotian realm. His Hotian realm Jin Qi was quickly getting exhausted and the recovery rate was far behind the rate of consumption. Not long after, his Jin Qi had finally depleted. And now, he could only rely on the medicinal pills which he had seized from the storage rings of An Yunpeng and Zhao Qian. Since both of them were the successors to famous schools, the quality of the medicinal pills in their storage rings would definitely be high. Yi Shiwen also did not want to consume too many. He just took a handful and stuffed into his mouth and quickly converted them into Jin Qi. After that, he continued to supply his Jin Qi into Hua Menghan's body. Time passed minute by minute, and in a blink of an eye, 3 days had already passed. Yi Shiwen had not relaxed even for a moment for the last 3 days and had constantly supplied Jin Qi into her body to heal her and also suppress the poison. By this time, he had already consumed most of the medicinal pills present inside the storage rings. He was a little anxious because the treatment he had performed using his Zhenqi was only temporary and it was possible for the poison to relapse at any moment. In the last 3 days, Yi Shiwen had benefited a lot. All this time, he had continued to deplete his Zhenqi and had consumed an insane amount of medicinal pills to restore it. By repeating this process of depleting and restoring the Zhenqi countless times, his meridians had actually grown 3 times thicker than before. However, it was all possible thanks to his insanely strong body. If an ordinary expert had followed this treatment process, then his body would have exploded from inside. Thicker meridians implied increased power. Moreover, at this time, Yi Shiwen was directing his own Zhenqi into Hua Menghan's body, which now contained both Xiantian Zhenqi and Houtian Zhenqi, to fight side by side against the poison. Also, thanks to this treatment process, his understanding of the Xiantian Zhenqi was also increasing rapidly. After a long period of continuous healing, his understanding of the Xiantian Zhenqi had increased by leaps and bounds. He had also started to condense his own Houtian Zhenqi into Xiantian Zhenqi. However, a lot of Houtian Zhenqi was required to form just one strand of Xiantian Zhenqi. It was simply a qualitative change in the Zhenqi. This was only a temporary treatment because the poison would definitely relapse sooner or later. To save her from this poison, his only option was to bring her back to the Yi Yuan school and ask his father to save her. At this time, Hua Menghan suddenly gained her consciousness and woke up slowly. "You're awake," Yi Shiwen said in a pleasant tone. Now that she was awake, things had become easier for him. "Where are we?" Hua Menghan was so weak that she collapsed into his arms and asked in a weak voice. "This is a cave. I brought you here to treat the poison." She fell into his bosom, a sweet fragrance entered his nose. However, at this moment, Yi Shiwen was not in a mood to have foolish thoughts. Chapter 43, Changing Muscles Shrinking Bones Technique. In the past few days, Yi Shiwen had been constantly healing Hua Menghan and now he was mentally very tired. Zhenqi could relieve the fatigue, but he had lost a considerable amount of Zhenqi in her treatment. "Thank you," Hua Menghan said in a weak voice. Hua Menghan felt that her clothes had not moved and her body also contained a foreign Zhenqi which belonged to Yi Shiwen. She soon realized that he must have performed the healing using his own Zhenqi to suppress the poison inside her body. So he was definitely not a bad person. "Check Luo Tian's storage ring, there should be an antidote inside it," Hua Menghan said intermittently. "Which one?" Yi Shiwen poured a bunch of bottles from Luo Tian's storage ring. These bottles contained a variety of medicinal pills and their quality was far better compared to the pills he had found in the storage rings of An Yunpeng and Zhao Qiyan. Hua Menghan finally found the antidote. From her words, Yi Shiwen came to know that this poison was called Qixing Haitang. It was a colorless, odorless, and a highly toxic poison. If a warrior of the Houtian realm got poisoned by Qixing Haitang, then he would die immediately. Even Xiantian experts would find it difficult to handle such a highly toxic poison which directly attacked the Zhenqi. If Yi Shiwen had not come to her rescue and suppressed the poison using his own Zhenqi, then she would definitely have died. After taking the antidote, she began the detoxification of poison present in her body. Slowly and gradually, she drove out the poison from her body. Now, her complexion had changed for the better, and her face had slowly gained vitality and looked livelier, increasing her beauty even more. Yi Shiwen realized that Hua Menghan was safe now. After so many days of constantly worrying about her safety, now he could finally take a breath of relief. He felt relaxed and fell into deep sleep. After a long rest, Yi Shiwen finally woke up only to find that Hua Menghan had already left, leaving behind a note for him. The note said that she was extremely grateful to him for saving her, but today, she had something important to care of, so she had to leave first. Later, if he ever needed her help with something, he could keep her jade pendant and look for her in the main sect. Yi Shiwen picked up the jade pendant. This ornament was icy cold to touch and a phoenix was carved on it. It was a result of fine workmanship and gave out a very vivid feeling. While he was admiring the vividness of this jade pendant, suddenly, he felt that a cold lump had made its way straight into his forehead, and filled his mind with pure brightness. This was definitely a rare treasure. When a person would wear this jade pendant and cultivate, then the cultivation would surely be more effective because the wearer would achieve twice the result with half the effort. Also, he would not be afraid of getting the backlash caused by cultivation. This treasure was far more precious than the inner armor because while cultivating, experts feared the most that they might face a rebound. But, if the person was wearing the jade pendant while cultivating, then he didn't need to fear the backlash. This rare treasure was certainly very precious. Of course, Yi Shiwen also knew that it was a kind of repayment from Hua Menghan in exchange for saving her life. Hua Menghan had left, but since she was also a disciple of Yi Yuan's school, then sooner or later, there would come a day when they meet again, certainly. For this term's core disciples competition, Yi Shiwen would also have traveled to Yi Yuan's school to participate. Sooner or later, they were bound to say goodbye to each other. Yi Shiwen finally looked inside the storage ring of Luo Tian. He was indeed worthy of being a Xiantian master, because, compared to Hotian realm masters like Zhao Qian and An Yunpeng, he was filthy rich. Inside Luo Tian's storage ring, there were no low-grade spirit stones but some other kind of stones. After thoroughly exploring the ring, he was totally speechless, because these were not low-grade spirit stones, but spirit stones. One spirit stone could be exchanged for 1,000 low-grade spirit stones. Since the ring contained 500 spirit stones, when converted to low-grade spirit stones, the total amount would be a full 500,000 low-grade spirit stones. This figure was absolutely astronomical even for the masters of Xiantian realm. These spirit stones would become very useful to him when he would become a Xiantian master, although spirit stones could be converted into low-grade spirit stones, but there was a catch. Converting spirit stones into low-grade spirit stones was very easy, but converting the low-grade spirit stones into spirit stones was difficult. However, Yi Shiwen was not stupid enough to do such a thing. It could be said that he had made a huge fortune this time. In addition to these spirit stones, he also got his hands on many high-quality medicinal pills which were capable of restoring the Zhen Qi by a great amount. But the most important of them all was a secret book called Changing Muscles Shrinking Bones Technique. The biggest use of this power technique was to change a person's appearance. When one reached the profound realm of this technique, then even the size of the bones could be changed to adjust the height. In other words, one could easily change his own appearance into another person. Of course, this change consumed a lot of Zhen Qi. However, once he would break into the Xiantian realm, then he would have a huge amount of Zhen Qi. Then, the consumption of Zhen Qi for using this disguise power technique would not be a problem for him. If an expert had not reached the Xiantian realm, then as long one would swallow the medicinal pills on regular intervals, the disguise could be maintained for a large interval of time by using up the Zhen Qi produced from medicinal pills. Of course, it was rare for Hotian realm masters to possess so many medicinal pills, and even if they did, they would never waste it on a disguise technique, because these medicinal pills could save their lives in critical situations. However, for Yi Shiwen, these medicinal pills were dispensable. Although, he had exhausted all of the pills present inside the storage rings of Zhao Qian and An Yunpeng, but Luo Tian's storage ring contained a lot of high-quality medicinal pills. However, right now, Yi Shiwen had no time to spare on practicing Changing Muscles Shrinking Bones technique because the core disciples competition was going to begin in just 2 days. After more than 2 hours, Yi Shiwen had finally returned back to Yi Yuan school. Compared to 3 months ago, the school seemed a lot livelier thanks to the core disciples competition. Many years ago, all of the core disciples had gone to meet the dragon head, and now, they had finally returned to the school to take part in the competition. Normally, the inner sect disciples were considered the high-level disciples, but at this time, all of the core disciples had come back, and considering their strengths, they could be considered the elites and far more superior to inner sect disciples. When Yi Shiwen entered the school campus, suddenly there were many disciples who recognized him and paid their respects by saluting to him. Yi Shiwen was no longer an unknown weak inner sect disciple. Now, he had gained a new identity of a core disciple. Yi Shiwen had also become the dark horse of Yi Yuan School's inner sect competition, who had triumphantly won the championship by defeating Dongfang Bai. Yi Shiwen was not a haughty person. Whenever the other disciples would salute to him, he would politely nod to them. He was walking through the campus of Yi Yuan School and was about to go home, but suddenly, he heard an insolent loud laughter. "Dongfang Bai, I've heard your name. They say you are the notorious genius of Yi Yuan School, but now it seems that it was just an exaggeration." A frivolous young voice said in a loud voice, "It seems that the level of this term's core disciples is quite low in Yi Yuan School." You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.